Welcome back to the live show. It is your boy Genesis, and the time is currently 2:44 a.m. and today's date is the 31st of October 2024. Ooh-wee. The year is coming to an end, and of course, it is very, very close to election day. Sometimes you think it's so far away, and then it's like it's right here in front of you. That's why you have to take your time very seriously. Don't waste your time. Do what you have to do. Don't procrastinate. Fight for your dreams. Do what you must do so you can do what you have to, so you can do what you want to do. Okay? It is what it is. Double tap your screen, subscribe to the channel. You know what time it is. I am back. I told you I was going to be back. And it is a very interesting day in America and in American politics. I am back. I am back. I am back. I feel so good this morning, early morning. Well, I go back home around say 11:30 p.m. and I had a little nap and now I'm back here. Okay. So, from the time that we ended the former stream or the last stream till now, a lot has happened in the United States, especially in the Trump campaign, as well as the Kamala campaign. Everybody has been going really hard, like I said. Everybody's trying to win and get to Washington, D.C. However, only one person is going to get in the house. Okay. So may the best man win. All right. All right. The title of today's stream right now is This is a Great Strategy. You know why I say this is a great strategy? The former president, the 45th, who most people say maybe the 47th, most likely, who knows? I don't know. He really, really pulled a stunt with this garbage truck outfit to the rally. It is wild. Okay, he pulled this is something nobody expected. Nobody expected this right here. And this was something I didn't know, because what happened at MSG at the event in New York, I was thinking, well, I don't know how he's going to like crawl out of that. I don't know how he's going to crawl out of that. But with this one, this is the new conversation. This is what everybody's talking about right now. And he just knows how him and his team, they just know how turn everything around in his favor. And I think he has one of the greatest team that I've seen when it comes to campaigning. But we're not going to know who has the best team until, the winner is announced. And like I said, may the best man win or the best woman win. It is what it is. All right, double tap your screen, subscribe to the channel. We are going to see what the former president did in Wisconsin today. I think this is in Green Bay, Wisconsin. He has a Trump garbage truck and he did something incredible. Let's see. I give you Donald J. Trump. Let's go.
All right, guys. All right, guys. Full camera.
Right here. Keep commenting. Nice.
President Trump, you said the other day that guard or the military could be used on election day. Can you be more specific about what that would look like?
Any questions?
Sir, RFK Jr. said that you promised to control the public health agencies if you were to win. Is that accurate?
I can't. You have to speak loud.
Sir, RFK Jr. said that you promised to control the public health agencies if you were to win. Is that true? Is that accurate?
Well, we'll work with him, and he's a very talented guy. He wants women's health. He wants health for people, and we're going to work with him. He's a very, very talented guy. He's a friend of mine.
President Trump,
you know that Elon Musk
the other day from the Democrats going to backfire?
I think the Democrats have done a very poor job. We're leading in every state. We're leading big, and I think that the comment made by really both of them, because there are really two of them, about being garbage, maybe 250 million people, they shouldn't be talking. That's like deplorable for Hillary. This is the deplorable for Hillary. And I think this is worse, actually. For Joe Biden to make that statement, it's really a disgrace.
President Trump, you said the other day that the military, instead of the military could be used, that the military or the National Guard could be used on election day if necessary. Can you explain what you mean by that in the details?
I don't think they'll have to be used. I think we're going to have a big victory. And I think 250 million people in this country are going to be very happy because we're going to bring the country back. We're a nation in decline, very, very serious decline. And we're going to bring our country back.
Did you know that Elon Musk was in close contact with President Putin? Did you know about this? Did you know about Elon Musk calls and close communication
No, I
with
don't know.
President?
Elon is a great guy. He's one of our geniuses, and we have to protect our geniuses. We have to take care of our
Mr.
geniuses.
President, there's a
There
report
aren't
that
too
you...
many of them. Yes, please.
You owe the people of Puerto Rico an apology for what the comedian said.
I love Puerto Rico, and Puerto Rico loves me. I don't know anything about a comedian. I love Puerto Rico. Nobody's done more for Puerto Rico than me. I took care of them when they had the big hurricanes, and nobody gets along better with Puerto Rico and the Puerto Rican people than me. They love me, and I love them. Go ahead. What? I don't know anything about the comedian. I don't know who he is. I've never seen him. I heard he made a statement, but it was just a statement that he made. He's a comedian. What can I tell you? I know nothing about him. I don't know why he's there. You put comedians up, and I guess he went on earlier in the show. I don't know who he is.
Did you think that joke was campaign with you? Is Steve Bannon going to campaign with you now that he's out of
I
prison?
don't know, but I think he's a terrific guy. I think he was treated very unfairly.
Mr. President, you've been talking about Democrats cheating. Could you imagine any circumstances under which you would be defeated but not say that the election was stolen?
If it was a corrupt election, that could happen. But so far, we're doing pretty well. They found a lot of smaller things in Pennsylvania, as you know, and I think they've been corrupted and taken care of. They were corrupt. They were corrupted, but I think it's been taken care of.
On that
Now that
subject,
the
you
lawsuits
called for law enforcement to investigate.
I was going to say, do you anticipate to declare victory on election night?
I hope that we're going to declare a victory. I mean, they spend all that money on machines. Paper ballots cost you 8% of what a machine costs, 8%. And it's encrypted paper, it's watermarked paper, it's very secure. Your elections would be over at 10 o'clock, and that's when you can announce something and there would be no question. And we're not talking about more money, we're talking about a tiny fraction of the money. You want paper, ideally, you want one-day voting, and I think it's just very important. You have to have the country and you have to have voter ID, and you have a great election. And you're talking about 8% of the cost. It's like very sad when you get machines, you pay all that money, and they talk about 3 days later. I think we're going to have a big enough victory to maybe have it that night. You should always have it, every night. If you look at France, 38 million votes. At 10 o'clock in the evening, it was over. All paper ballots, all voter ID, one-day voting, and it was over. How do you like my garbage truck? This truck is in honor of Kamala and Joe Biden.
President Trump, you asked for law enforcement to investigate in Pennsylvania. If they find no evidence of cheating, will you accept the result if you lose?
Well, I guess they had quite a few ballots, 2,600 ballots where the same person was signing.
But if they find no evidence of cheating, will you accept the results?
Pennsylvania, sure. Oh, if they find no evidence of cheating anywhere, I'll accept the results. Christmas. I hope that's going to be the case. Win, lose, or draw, I hope that's going to be the case.
Sir, in Bucks County.
Now listen, I have to do something because Brett Favre is a great guy. He just endorsed me, and he's very important at this moment. I mean, you know, he's got a little problem for himself, and I thought it was very brave that he came out. And I want to go over and see Brett Favre. We're all going together, I assume. You're going over. I'm going to make a speech. We're going to then try and beat the weather out because we have some bad weather coming in. But I just wanted to let you know that 250 million people, that's what I think the real number is for making America great again. 250 million, the real number. They don't think in terms of garbage, okay? They don't use terms like that. And it's a shame. And Joe Biden should be ashamed of himself if he knows what he's even doing. And she should be ashamed because she shouldn't let him do it. She's the vice president, but I assume she's acting as the president. She should never have let that happen. I hope you enjoyed this garbage truck. Thank you very much.
Thank you, press. Thank you, press. Thank you, press.
Yo, ladies and gentlemen, you just heard from the 45th President of the United States. You heard what he said. He was in a garbage truck and he wore the outfit of, you're trying to clean up some stuff. And that's how you know this strategy was a great strategy from his campaign team. I can't even clap about that one. All right, let's go to his rally today. And this man pulled a lot of stunt today. Let's go.
And we know it's really what they believe because look at how they've treated you. Thank you very much, everybody. And I have to begin by saying 250 million Americans are not garbage. This week, Kamala has been comparing her political opponents to the most evil mass murderers in history. And now, speaking on a call for her campaign last night, crooked Joe Biden finally said what he and Kamala really think of our supporters. He called them garbage. No way. No way. And they actually mean it, even though, without question, my supporters are far higher quality than crooked Joe or lying Kamala. Higher quality. Higher quality. My response to Joe and Kamala is very simple. You can't lead America if you don't love Americans. That's true. You can't be president if you hate the American people, which I believe they do. And Kamala Harris is not fit to be president of the United States. In no way is she fit. She doesn't have the intellect, the stamina, or that special quality that real leaders, people like Brett Favre have. They don't have it. They don't have it. They don't have what he's got. Few people do, to be honest with you. Joe Biden's comments were the direct result of Kamala's decision to portray everyone who isn't voting for her, which is a lot of people, as evil and subhuman. And we know it's really what they believe because look at how they've treated you. They treat you like garbage. They treat our whole country like garbage with open borders, with all of the horrible things they've done to hurt our country, inflation that should have never happened, allowing Russia to go into Ukraine, October 7th, in Israel. All of these things would have never happened if you had a different president. For the past 9 years, Kamala and her party have called us racists, bigots, fascists, deplorables, irredeemables, Nazis, and they called me Hitler. They've bullied you, they've demonized us, they've censored us, they've deplatformed us, and they weaponized the power of our own government against all of us. They've taken your money, they've thrown open your borders to criminals and terrorists, they've flooded your towns with deadly drugs and death. They're incompetent people. They've given your jobs to illegal migrants and sent our blood and treasure to fight in stupid foreign wars where the countries don't even know who we are and where we've never heard of the country. This Tuesday is your chance to stand up and declare you are not going to take it anymore. Six days from now, we can turn the page forever on this failed and corrupt administration. It's a corrupt administration, you do know that. We can declare once and for all that we are done with their hatred. We're done with their hysteria. We're done with their hoaxing, lying, cheating, scheming, plundering, and stealing. Oh, they steal. They steal. We're not going to let them divide and destroy America any longer. What we have built is the biggest, broadest, most incredible coalition and the greatest political movement in the history of our country. It's made up of hardworking men and women who make this country run, who really built this country. Originally, we have brought together veterans and union members, soldiers and steel workers, farmers and auto workers, and patriotic moms and dads of every race, religion, color, and creed. We're welcoming historic numbers of African Americans, Hispanic Americans, Asian Americans, and Arab Americans. And we're uniting Christians and Jews, Catholics and evangelicals, Muslims and Mormons, and everyone who simply wants to do one thing: make America great again. Thank you. Our campaign has been endorsed by the 400,000 members of the Fraternal Order of Police and every single police group all around our country. It's been endorsed by the Border Patrol. We have the greatest people, that Border Patrol. Those agents are incredible. They've given me the strongest endorsement you've ever heard. The greatest president ever, they said. And they said, she is the worst person we've ever worked for. She, in 4 years, never called us one time about the border. And it's destroying our country, the border. So I want to thank the Border Patrol. I want to thank ICE. I want to thank ICE. They're incredible people. We've been supported by the rank and file membership of the Teamsters, 62%, think of that. By our beautiful and very brilliant Elon Musk. Do we love Elon? All I know is when that rocket ship came down last week, I said, oh, this is going to be terrible. It's going to crash. Look, oh, it's going to crash. It was coming down this way. And then those jets kicked in, the fire was pouring all over the place. I said, what's going on? And all of a sudden it started to be perfect, straight, dropped down. Then those arms grabbed it like you grab your little baby, grabbed it. And I said, who the hell pulled off that? I thought it was a science fiction movie, actually. I called up Elon. I said, Elon, was that you? He said, that was me. I said, that's why we love you, Elon. I said, can Russia do that? No, they can't. Can China do that? Nope, they can't. Can the U.S. do it other than you? No, they can't. I said, well, special guy, right? Special guy. Special guy. And we're endorsed also by a very brilliant and wonderful man, and it took a lot of courage for him to do this. As you know, their family's slightly Democrat for the last long period of time. RFK Jr., Robert F. Kennedy. And he's going to be with us, and he's going to make sure our food is safe, our people are safe, our women are safe. The only thing I don't think I'm going to have him get involved with too much is the liquid gold under our feet. I want to say, look, Bobby, we got a lot of liquid gold, and I like it better than he does, but I'm going to give him a lot. Just take care of everybody's health, and he'll do a great job of it. He's really a very special guy, special. And Tulsi Gabbard, respected by everybody, she just signed on an endorsement and became a Republican. She just became a Republican. And another one is Buzz Aldrin. Now, I didn't realize this. I had respect for him for many years. Great astronaut, great person, highly respected. And I said, you know, he'd be good, but what's the big deal with Buzz? They said, sir, he just endorsed you, and he's never done that before. Wow. I said, listen, I want to mention his name. And I want to give a special thanks to a man that you may not have heard of, Brett Favre, because and his great family. What a beautiful boy, what a beautiful family. But this is a special guy. Man, does he have a hand, you know? This guy shook my hand. His fingers are like sausages. No wonder he can throw the ball so hard. There was nobody like him, really. I've watched him throw those 500-yard games like it was nothing. He was flinging it. He didn't throw it, he flung it, right? Thank you, Brett. What a great honor. What a great champion. What a great champion. And what a beautiful boy and family. Incredible wife. Thank you, darling, very much. Great honor to have you. Thank you, Brett. And I came in, I went on the plane, I'm watching, and I heard him get applause. And I'm a little upset because I think he got bigger applause than me, and I'm not happy. He got bigger than me. Thank you, Brett. Thank you, everybody. Isn't it an honor to have him? That's unbelievable. Kamala and Joe call all of us, and them, even them, garbage. I call you the heart and soul of America. You are the heart and soul. You built our country. You know, you built our country. You built it. Far more than they built it, I can tell you that. You built it. And by the way, I want to thank all of our incredible sanitation workers all across America. Because they work hard, they really do work hard. And they do an incredible job, and they don't get the credit they deserve, like our police, like our firefighters, like so many others. They don't get the credit, but everybody knows we love them, and everybody knows they deserve the credit, and they will get the credit. And with us, we appreciate them. With the help of everyone here today, on November 5th, we're going to bring back our country, and we're going to bring it to levels of greatness that nobody actually thought even possible. So we're going to do that. November 5th is going to be the most important day in the history of our country. I believe that because we are in a country right now that's in serious decline, and we're not going to let the country decline. We're in a failing country. We're in a country that's being laughed at all over the world by other leaders. They laugh at our leaders. We're not going to let that happen anymore. That didn't happen 4 years ago. So while we're running a campaign of solutions to save America, and America which they have virtually destroyed during their almost 4-year period of rule, Kamala Harris, a very low IQ individual, is running a campaign of hate, anger, and retribution. She spends all of her time complaining about everything, but does nothing about it. She talks about the border, but why didn't she do it 3.5 years ago? She talks about all these things. We're going to help the environment. Why didn't she do it? We had the best environment. By the way, we had the cleanest water and the cleanest air at any time in recorded history. She talks about what she's going to do about inflation, which has destroyed our senior citizens and our middle class, what they've done. You know, I had no inflation, and we had the best economy in history. That's a nice combination. But she did nothing about it, or what she's going to get. She's going to talk about how she's going to get the economy going. Oh, I watched her last night. I watched her. Oh, I'm going to get. She didn't say anything. She said, I'm going to get the economy, but she didn't say how. I said how. I said, we're going to bring companies in. We're going to protect those companies. They're going to take advantage of all of the things that we're doing. They're going to hire people at numbers that you wouldn't even believe. We're going to have hundreds and hundreds and even thousands of companies coming in to our country. And I will use a thing called, the most beautiful word to me ever, not quite, well, let me say this. How about third? Let's put religion number one and love number two. And then we'll put the word tariff, number three. Tariff. They're going to have to pay us to come in and use our wealth and take our jobs and do what they've done. But nobody ever did that except me. China paid us hundreds of billions of dollars. They weren't happy, but I still got along with them very well. And then COVID came, and I wasn't happy. That was a bridge too far. But we had the greatest economy in the history of our country. We took in hundreds of billions of dollars from China and others. And we were just getting started. But remember this, Kamala and Crooked Joe head up the worst administration in the history of our country by far. He's the worst president in the history of the USA, and she is by far the worst vice president in the history of the USA. Remember, 5 months ago, they said you couldn't even think about using her. She's grossly incompetent, right? Then all of a sudden, they wanted to get politically correct, and they chose her above 12 other people that, frankly, were much more capable. But what they did to Biden, and I'm no fan of his, but you know what the rumor is? He likes me more than her. Can you believe that? He likes me. He likes me more. But their administration makes Jimmy Carter's administration look absolutely brilliant. And in all fairness to Jimmy, he didn't let 21 million people pour into our country with thousands and thousands of criminals and murderers and drug dealers, people from mental institutions. They're emptying out, think of this, they're emptying out mental institutions from all over the world, from the Congo in Africa. They're all over the world, from Asia, from the Middle East, from South America. They're emptying their jails. Think of that. They're emptying their jails. They're emptying their mental institutions and insane asylums into the United States of America, and these two stupid people allow it to happen. 13,000 plus murderers, many of them committed more than one murder, and they're walking around in our country free and clear to kill again, and they will. They'll kill many times. And last night, Kamala made a speech with a lot of paid audience. They had a lot of paid audience. They came in buses, the same buses, all those same buses. You know what that means? They bust people in. We didn't bust any people in here. We could have sold this place out 4 times. No, they come in, they bus them from someplace, they pay them or something. They bus them in with every bus, beautiful bus company, I will say. They did a nice job, bus after bus. And then they leave. They leave before she finishes. But listen, the worst was 4 nights ago. They got Beyonce. Beyonce. They got Beyonce. They said, ladies and gentlemen, they said, Beyonce is coming to sing. And she came, but she didn't sing. And then Kamala came on as Beyonce was leaving without singing even one song. And they booed the hell out of both of them. But we don't need Beyonce. We don't need anybody. All you got is me, and I don't have a guitar. I do not have a guitar. But if you look outside, you could have sold this big arena out 4 times. And at Madison Square Garden the other night, you could have sold that great, incredible, look, Madison Square Garden, MSG, the greatest, I think the greatest, right? It's got to be. It's Mecca for the great championships. In the history of Madison Square Garden, they told me, Jim Dolan, everybody, they're fantastic, the job they did for us Sunday night. They said, you could have sold this thing 10 times. We've never seen. In all of those years, they had crowds of people, and I don't mean lines, I mean massive groups of people, all the way back down to the Hudson River. We could have sold it out 10 times. And that's just based on what we're saying. But she spoke last night, and it was boring as hell, but I have an obligation to watch it, you know, because she's our competition. We have to win. We can't take any. They would destroy this country. If they won this thing, they would destroy. You'd have 300 million people coming through, not just 21. Can you imagine? Open borders policy for the entire world, for every criminal in the world. But she talked last night, and all she talked about was Donald Trump.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight, I will speak about Donald Trump. 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 Trump.
That's all she talked about, because she and Joe have absolutely no achievements. They only have failure and gloom and death. And death. Look at the death they've caused in Afghanistan. Look at that. Look at the death they've caused at our border. And you'll see that. You'll see that what they've done, they've been so bad. We have to get them the hell out fast. She suffers from a very serious disease known as Trump derangement syndrome. But many Democrats do. And you know why they do? Because we're winning. We're winning. We are winning. So this Tuesday, you have to stand up and you have to tell Kamala that you've had enough. You can't take it anymore. You're the worst vice president. You're the worst border czar. There's never been anybody bad like you. Kamala, you're fired. Get the hell out of here. Get out of here. Thank you very much. So this outfit, you know, is when he called us all garbage. How stupid. What a stupid word. That blows deplorable away, don't you think? Of course, I thought irredeemable when she said deplorable or irredeemable. I thought irredeemable was actually worse, but deplorable seemed to catch on. But this garbage stuff blows it away. So I'm in this beautiful plane. I'm enjoying myself. I have a wonderful suit on. And one of my people came in and said, sir, you know, the word garbage is the hottest thing right now out there. The hottest thing out there. Sir, would you like to drive a garbage truck? Now, we're about, 30 minutes from landing. We had to do this pretty quick. I said, it's sort of cool, though, isn't it? Because, And I said, I think that's okay, but, I don't feel comfortable wearing a suit. And they pulled up this garbage truck. I don't know how the hell they did it so fast. I have very capable people. They put a big sign on the truck. Did you see it? I think they showed it to you. Yeah. And then they said, sir, we have a vest. I said, well, should I leave my suit on and put it over the vest? But that doesn't look very good, right? That doesn't look good. So I said, all right, look, let me take it off. And then I actually said, I climbed into the truck, but so I said, how the hell do you get into this truck? It's way up high. It's a big one. This was a beauty. I said, you didn't have to buy it that big, right? You have to get it that big? They brought this brand new, gorgeous truck, wonderful driver. He looked like Cary Grant in his prime. You know who that is? This beautiful driver. And he drove that big thing up. And I said, man, this is bad, because now I have all the cameras are all watching. Look at all the fake news. They were, most of them. No, most of them, many of them were there. And I'm saying, oh, boy, one little mistake with these guys and your political career's over. You can't even. So I said, man, if I don't get up there, this is going to be very embarrassing. These stupid people, they'll say, he's cognitively and physically impaired. And I can't do that when I'm alongside of this great athlete. I got to get up to that. So the first stair is like up here. I'm saying, shit. So I had the adrenaline going, and I made it. I made it. And then I gave a little news conference from the front of the, they asked their wise guy questions and everything. And then we drove about 2 feet. I got out, got into the plane. And then I got in the car, and I'm driving over here, and I have this still on. And I come into the arena, and I say, where's my jacket? I want to get out of this thing. And they said, it would be unbelievable if you could wear it on stage. I said, and I said, no way. I got 25,000 people standing outside. I got all these people here. There's no way I'm wearing it on stage. They said, oh, okay, sir. I said, get me my jacket. But if you did, it actually makes you look thinner. I said, and they got me. I said, I want to wear it on stage. When they said I look thinner, I said, in that case, I'll wear it on stage. I may never wear a blue jacket again. I may go in this. I said that was the word, that was the key. Sir, you look thinner. So anyway, we had a little fun about a very serious subject. We had a little fun about a time where our country is not having a lot of fun because we're not doing well as a country, but we're going to be doing well very shortly. I promise you that. And I guess you've been reading and seeing the news. It's big stuff. That's all they talk about now is the election. Boy, 6 days, 5 days. But we've set an all-time record in early voting, and the Republicans have set the highest record. They've never even come close. And for you that want to know, tomorrow is the last day for you right here. We've been doing great. This is a great state. This is always been good. Remember this. When you're getting ready to pull that lever, I gave you a boat contract just before I left. And this contract, you know where, right? I gave you, correct. I gave you, and you're building the most beautiful boat. And I'll tell you what, you're doing a great job. They're doing a great job. But everybody in the country wanted that contract. It's a big Navy contract, like 28 ships. They're really like yachts. They're like beautiful yachts with a lot of guns on them, a lot of guns and weapons. And I'm a guy. I love beauty. Oh, I love beauty. So I took that ship and I designed the bow a little bit differently. I said, no, it's got to have more of a point. It was like, and they were great. And they're building it, and it's been so successful. It's the most beautiful thing. But I took a lot of heat from other states because everybody wanted that contract, one of the biggest contracts we've given out in a long time for ships. And they're doing a great job. But you better remember, Wisconsin, I gave it to you. I wanted to give it to you. No, I'm a very visual person. You know, I'm very visual. I don't know if that's good or bad, but it's can't help that. And I sort of wanted to redesign it a little bit, and we did, and they were great. They said, well, that's good. And then they said, you're right, this does look better. It's gorgeous. It's really good. So tomorrow is the last day to request a mail-in ballot, and you still have a few more days to do early in-person voting, but the main thing is to get everyone out and vote, vote, vote. We're going to vote, vote, vote. And, you know, we've had tremendous crowds. I've been up here probably 4 or 5 times already. You got me working, Wisconsin. I mean, what the hell do I need this for, right? Do I need this? If it wasn't for bread, I would not have done this, okay? No, but look. I've been up here 4 or 5 times. We had one area, small area, beautiful area actually, but small, and they wouldn't give us enough Secret Service. We had 71,000 people. We ended up in a room with 900. So we have 71,000 people. You saw that about a month ago. 71,000 people. I had a room like a basketball court for 900 because they don't want to take care of us. But it's been getting better and better. It's a little dangerous being president, I will tell you. I didn't think about that. But I could tell the story that a race car driver, 1% of 1%, right? 1/10 of a percent, but 1% of 1%, very little. Bull riders, I think that's a slightly dangerous profession. A little bit more than a race car driver, but very little, much less than 1%. A president, I don't want to tell you the percentage, but this is a very dangerous profession. And if I had to do it again, I would have done it every single time because we're going to make America great again. And if we win Wisconsin, I don't know if you know, it's very important. You're a very political state, actually. But if we win Wisconsin, we win the whole thing. We're going to win the whole thing. And we've always done well up here, so it's great, and we love it, and we love being here, actually. So together we're going to defeat Kamala Harris, and we're going to win back that beautiful White House, and it's going to happen very quickly. And if you think of it, Kamala Harris cast the deciding votes that launched the worst inflation in the history of our country. She cost the typical American family over $30,000 in higher prices, and now Kamala wants to raise the typical family's taxes by $3,000 a year. Congratulations. But if I win, we will rapidly defeat inflation, and I will make America affordable again. We're going to make it affordable. We got to bring those costs down. They call it groceries. Bacon, lettuce, tomato, everything is so much higher than it ever was, and we're going to bring that down, and we're going to do it very simply. We're going to drill, baby, drill. We're going to bring the energy down, and everything's going to come down. I will massively cut taxes for workers and small businesses all over the country, and we're going to have something that really has turned out to be quite good. You know, in Nevada we're winning, in Arizona we're winning by a lot. We just got I won't tell you which ones, but in certain states they've already pulled their advertising because they don't want to waste it. They were so far ahead. We're so far ahead. So we're going to get the taxes down and she's raising your taxes, remember that. Everything she says is a lie. She lies. If I say, look, you all know I'm a big fracker, okay? I never said we won't frack. I'm a driller and I'm a fracker. She's not a fracker. She has a commercial that says, he doesn't want to frack. Just the exact opposite. Boy, what liars. I've never had, even Crooked Hillary wasn't this dishonest. And she was damn bad, but she wasn't dishonest like these people. Well, I think they're desperate. They said things, I see these ads, it's the exact opposite. It's like her policies used to be, before she changed them a year, she changed 15 different policies. You know, if you're a politician, you might get away with one, but 15 policies. She loves transgender operations all over the place. Everybody should have one. She loves men playing in women's sports, isn't that great? And she loves open borders where people can pour into our country. But now she's changed that about a year ago. She changed it, and so good. In fact, I think I'm going to send her your MAGA hat. Can I have your MAGA hat? Are they the greatest? Is that the greatest? It's like a sea of red. Except for Elon. Elon had the black hat, right? And I didn't even know we had a black hat. And he shows up in a black hat, Make America, and the letters were black. It was very subdued. And I said, Elon, where'd you get that hat? He said, it's dark MAGA. He called it dark MAGA. And he wore it. He wore it to Butler. He wore it in Pennsylvania, one of the great nights. We had 107,000 people show up for Corey, the firefighter. Butler, PA. And Elon wore it, and he had such a good, he spends all the time in these labs and stuff. It's like crazy. And when he got out, he said, I've never seen anything like this. He had the black MAGA hat on. Here's the good news. I sold 10,000 of those hats over the next week. I didn't even know we had black hats. We sold 10. There was a run on black MAGA, dark MAGA. And Byron liked it too, didn't you, Byron? Huh? Byron liked it. Byron looked beautiful in it. Huh? He looks good in anything. So that was something, I'll tell you. But that was an incredible salute to somebody that deserved it. A big Trump fan. And we raised him a lot of money too. We raised the family a lot of money because he deserved it. We have a man tonight. Maybe I'll introduce him really fast, just fast. He's a friend of mine, very successful guy. And I've known him for a long time. He's a member of a place called Mar-a-Lago. Nobody's ever heard of it. But he said, sir, do you mind if I give some money to the widow of Corey, the firefighter? I said, absolutely you should, because Corey had a great career, but it's not exactly, the money doesn't exactly flow in, right? So he hands me a check, and I didn't really look at it, just put it in my pocket. Then I got back home and I looked at it, $1 million. Dan, stand up, please. Stand up. What a nice thing. And then we raised another $4 or $5 million for the family, and also for the two gentlemen that took hard hits. They took hard hits too. The doctors were incredible up there. These guys took 2 hard hits. These were big Trump fans and MAGA fans more than even Trump fans, and they know what we're doing is right, but boy, they got hit. But they were, in fact, we thought we lost 3 people, and they made it. And we're giving them something substantial, but we wanted to take care of them all. So Corey was gone immediately, but it was amazing. But I want to thank you, Dan. That was nice, Dan. So we're going to have, in addition to taking care of our workers and lowering the taxes, we're going to also have no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security benefits for our great seniors. And I'm going to support a tax credit for family caregivers who take care of their parent or loved one. And they deserve it, right? They deserve it. They're great. You know, if you didn't have people like that, you wouldn't have enough hospitals in this country. They do a job that's incredible, and they do it out of love. You don't have to worry about it. They do it out of love. So we're going to work on a good tax credit for them. We're going to get it done, too. So I will terminate the Green New Scam, and I will cut your energy prices in half. Within 12 months, your energy prices will be in exactly half. 50%. 50%. 50. To bring back millions of jobs, we will give our companies the lowest taxes, the lowest energy costs, the lowest regulatory burdens, and free access to the best and biggest market on the planet. It won't be that way for long if we have idiots running it. It won't be that way. But right now we can say it. But only for those who make their product here in the USA and hire American workers for the job. They're the only ones that do. And if these companies don't make their products here, then they will pay a stiff tariff when they send their products into the United States for the privilege of competing with our workers and our now protected companies. We're going to protect these companies so they don't leave us like they have been doing for 50 years. And we'll also pass the Trump Reciprocal Trade Act. That's if China or any other country charges us 100 or 200% tariff or tax, then we will charge them a like 100 or 200% tariff or tax, called an eye for an eye. And you'll see everything just disappear. I will never apologize for defending America. I will protect our workers. I will protect our jobs. I will protect our borders. I will protect our families. And I will protect the birthright of our children to live in the richest and most powerful nation on the face of the earth. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Get out and vote. And as we rescue our economy, I will also restore our borders. We're going to have a border. We had the strongest border. Wait. Bring down my all-time favorite chart. Bring it down. In history. I love that chart. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that chart, if I didn't look over to the right. I wouldn't be here. I love that chart. Even if the numbers were lousy, I would love that chart. But the numbers are the best ever. So the arrow, the big red arrow on the bottom, that arrow. That's an aggressive youngster. He's going to go places. He's going to go places. But that's my last day in office, and you look at what's happened. That was a Elon rocket ship after that day. Look what happens to that chart. Look what happens to that chart. That was the lowest illegal immigration that we've had. All they had to do, Biden, when he went to the beach, all he had to do is leave it alone. We had remain in Mexico. Nobody could come in. The head of Mexico president said to me, of course we won't do that. No. I said, you will do it. You will do it. He said, no, we won't let them remain in Tijuana. Hundreds of thousands of people coming up, pouring through our borders with the past administration. I said, no, you're going to do it. He said, I'm not going to do it. And we had a good relationship. I liked the guy. He was a socialist, but that's okay. And I said, no, you're going to do it, because if you don't do it, I'm going to put 100% tariff on everything you're selling to us. And you're going to, and he said, what do you mean 100? I said, well, I'll start off at 10. I'm going to raise it to 20, then 30, then 40, then 50, and I'll stop at 100, I promise. That's more money than anything you ever heard. And he said, Donald, I would love to do as you request. I would love to. It'd be my great honor to have a policy of remain in Mexico. Over the past 4 years, Kamala has orchestrated the most egregious betrayal that any leader in American history has ever inflicted upon our people. The most egregious. It's disgusting what she did. She's violated her oath and eradicated our sovereign border and unleashed an army of migrant gangs. They're waging a campaign of violence and terror against our citizens like we've never suffered before. We've never had this before in our country. It's an invasion, ladies and gentlemen. It's an invasion. Kamala has imported criminal migrants from prisons and jails, from insane asylums and mental institutions all over the world, from Venezuela to the Congo, including savage criminals who assault, rape, and murder our women and girls. Anyone who would let monsters kidnap and kill our children does not belong anywhere near the Oval Office. And my people told me about 4 weeks ago, I was saying, no, I want to protect the people. I want to protect the women of our country. I want to protect the women. Sir, please don't say that. Why? They said, we think it's very inappropriate for you to say. I said, why? I'm president. I want to protect the women of our country. They said, sir, I just think it's inappropriate for you to say, pay these guys a lot of money. Can you believe it? I said, well, I'm going to do it whether the women like it or not. I'm going to protect them. I'm going to protect them from migrants coming in. I'm going to protect them from foreign countries that want to hit us with missiles and lots of other things. Remember, for 4 years we had no war other than I defeated ISIS, but I defeated ISIS in... I felt like Brett Favre. I defeated ISIS in 4 weeks instead of 5 years, which they said it was going to take. Because we have a great military, we just didn't have any leadership at the top. I mean, in the office of the president, or even close to it. So I said, I'm going to defend and I'm going to protect women. I'm not going to let people go up to the suburbs or go into places where they live, whether it's suburbs or cities or farms. We're going to protect our women. At the border, we're going to protect our women. And also, we're going to protect our men and our children. We're going to protect everybody. Is there any woman in this giant stadium who would like not to be protected? Is there any woman in this stadium that wants to be protected by the president? I love these. You know, these women are from North Carolina. These women, they've been to 251 rallies. Look how beautiful they are. And they're all happily married. They're beautiful husbands. I saw them once. But, you know, I never see their husbands. I only see them. Look at them. They travel all over the country. This is at least a pretty close one. They go to California. They're incredible women. I think they have a good home life. I'm not exactly sure. No, their husbands are great, but I appreciate it. Yeah, it's like 251. Can you believe it? And we have front row Joes here, too. They've been to like 400. We got a lot of fun. It's good to see you. These are great people. They're patriots, I will tell you. And they're very successful people. Very successful people. And we have Mr. Wall here someplace. He's great. He has the wall. I'm going to use that suit someday when I come out. But and it's representative. We've built 571 miles of wall on the southern border. And Mexico paid for it by supplying us with soldiers free of charge, more money than, because technically you can't get them to build the wall if you own the wall, which unfortunately we couldn't work out, but I did better. We got their soldiers and they protected us while we were building it, and they still protect us to a certain extent. So I want to thank, we've had a good relationship with Mexico, but they're going to have to do a better job. We're losing much more than 100,000 people a year to fentanyl coming in from China and then through Mexico. We're going to talk to Mexico very early in our discussions. We're maybe like the first day, one of the very first calls I'm going to make, because we cannot let fentanyl come into our country. Can't let it come in. And I'm talking to China, too. I'll call President Xi. We had a deal, President Xi and I, and then we had the whole thing come in with the China virus, right? But we had a deal with President Xi. He was going to give the death penalty to anybody producing fentanyl and sending it into the United States. But, of course, when Biden took over, it didn't mean anything. Just like the Abraham Accords, we had 4 countries. I would have had that filled. We would have had peace in the Middle East. They didn't do anything. They just sat there with it. So, we'll get it all taken care of as soon as we get in. But today I want you to hear directly from a mother whose world was absolutely shattered. This is a sad thing. I've had it for one day, and everybody that's seen it, they end up crying. Strong, tough guys, they end up crying. It's so sad, and it's emblematic of what's happening in our country. By thousands and thousands of people are being killed. This was a young, beautiful girl. Please watch.
Sunday night, I asked her to not stay up super late because of her coming to work with me in the morning first to do her summer school. She said, okay. I told her good night and I love you. I went to bed, not realizing that that was going to be the last time I saw her. We're best friends. Yeah.
We're going to shake it again.
I woke up to notice she wasn't in her bed. I'm in my heart trying not to lose my mind because I don't know where she is. I finally remembered her phone had a location on, and her phone was pinging just 2 minutes down the road, right behind the skate park. I start driving to the direction the phone was being pinged at, and I see a couple cop cars with lights on. I see yellow tape. And immediately my heart drops and sinks to the bottom of my stomach. My daughter's hands and ankles were both bound. She was strangled to death, left with no pants. And I know in my heart, she fought incredibly hard. She was not going down without a fight.
We begin with 2 men we're learning are charged with capital murder tonight, accused of killing a 12-year-old girl.
Police say these men strangled her before dumping her into that creek. Both men were in the country illegally.
Apprehended, then released by Border Patrol less than 3 weeks before Jocelyn's death. The men accused of killing Jocelyn Nungare are affiliated with the gang known for brutal violence.
Kamala Harris was in charge of immigration in our borders. If we had better border policies and not open borders and not these catch and release policies, I truly believe this all could have been prevented. Under her being vice president of this country, my daughter's life was ripped away from her. She had her entire life ahead of her.
Happy birthday, dear Jocelyn.
My daughter is 6 feet in the ground based off of policies that she allowed to keep. Kamala Harris did have one job, and she not only failed, not me, she failed my daughter. She failed Jocelyn. She was only 12. President Trump reached out, gave me his sincerest condolences as not a former president, but just as a father, someone who cares. I believe Donald Trump needs to be back in office. I can at least know that my next child will be safe in this country.
This is what we're letting into our country, and this is times thousands, all different forms, all different ages, but by thousands and thousands of people are being killed and being mutilated. The day I take the oath of office, the migrant invasion ends and the restoration of our country begins. Thank you. The savages charged with brutalizing and murdering precious Jocelyn are members of the same vicious Venezuelan prison gang, Tren de Aragua, that's taking over apartment complexes and unleashing violent killing sprees all over America. They took over, as you know, in Colorado, Aurora, Colorado. They took over a big section, apartment complexes and others. And they're all over the country. They're even in Times Square in New York City now. And we're getting them the hell out. Take a look.
Open borders, deadly consequences.
Border crisis. Record high crossings are putting a strain on cities across America.
It is a full-blown invasion.
Armed Venezuelan gang members storming an apartment complex in Aurora, Colorado.
When people talk about migrant crime, this is what they're talking about.
San Antonio, Texas, just one of the latest cities to have apartment complexes taken over by members of the Venezuelan gang.
Biden and Harris had created a program to bring them in under humanitarian parole.
I am in favor of saying that we're not going to treat people who are undocumented across the border as criminals.
More than 13,000 illegal immigrants convicted of murder have been released into the United States.
My 20-year-old daughter, Kayla Hamilton, was murdered in her own room. Kayla's murderer was apprehended by Border Patrol crossing illegally into the U.S.
Kayla's murderer had been improperly released into the United States.
Abolish ICE. Yeah, we need to probably think about starting from scratch.
More than a dozen people suspected of being Tren de Aragua gang members right here in San Antonio.
The gang members had been terrorizing the apartment complex.
New details in the murder of Laken Riley. The illegal immigrant suspect, who cops say committed the heinous murder, is a Venezuelan national.
And was paroled and released into the country by the Biden administration.
If they'd all been properly vetted, that probably wouldn't have happened.
2 men investigators say are in the country illegally from Venezuela are charged with capital murder in the death of Jocelyn Nungaray.
Martinez Rangel wrapped his arms around Jocelyn's neck, took off her pants, and climbed on top of her. Later strangled Jocelyn to death and then tied up her hands and feet.
Court documents suggest a group of men arrested for beating and robbing a Dallas woman last month are members of a Venezuelan street gang.
The men threatened to cut off her fingers if she did not cooperate. Manuel Hernandez was booked by Colleyville police just 2 days earlier and released the day before the robbery.
A Peruvian gang leader who is wanted for 23 murders. He was arrested by Border Patrol near Roma, Texas, then released into America.
This is what we're letting into our country. With no control whatsoever. We have no idea who they are. They don't check them. There's no vetting. There's no nothing. They're coming in at levels that we've never seen before. Last month, I was in the beautiful small town of Prairie du Chien, Wisconsin, where police arrested a Tren de Aragua gang member who crossed Kamala's wide open border. Just come on in. And then came into your state and held a mother and daughter captive against their will and sexually assaulted them again and again and again and did great harm to both. Just last week, an illegal alien driving an SUV hit a 60-year-old retired Green Bay police officer as he was helping two drivers by the side of the road. Instead of helping his critically injured victim, the illegal alien, who had a can of beer in his passenger seat and lots of cans of beer and plenty of other things in the car, got out of his car and ran away, leaving the retired policeman to die and bleed to death. We're praying for his family. The United States is now an occupied country, but it will soon be an occupied country no longer. November 5th, 2024 will be Liberation Day in America. And on day one, I will launch the largest deportation program in American history. We have no choice. It's not sustainable. For any country, it's not sustainable what's happening to us. I will rescue every city and town that has been invaded and conquered. We are being invaded, and we are being conquered, just like it was a military operation. And we will put these vicious and bloodthirsty criminals in jail or kick them the hell out of our country very rapidly. To expedite removals of Trende, Aragua, and other savage gangs, I will invoke the Alien Enemies Act of 1798. Can you believe 1798? That's when we had people that wanted to protect their people. I have to go back a long way. To target and dismantle every migrant criminal network, and every single one of them operating on American soil. And there are many. And if they come back into our country, it's an automatic 10 years in jail with no possibility of parole. And I am hereby calling for the death penalty for any migrant that kills an American citizen or a law enforcement officer. And I will immediately ban all sanctuary cities in the United States of America. They'll be banned. With their open borders, they're going to destroy your Social Security and Medicare. They're destroying your Social Security and Medicare. They are going to do it, and I don't think they care. But I'm going to save it all, and I'm going to, more importantly and most importantly, we're going to save our country. We're going to save our country. Kamala's gross incompetence. Her gross incompetence disqualifies her from being President of the United States of America. She's incompetent. Everyone knows it. No one respects her. No one trusts her. No one takes her seriously. And to make her president would be a gamble with the lives of millions and millions of people. She would get us into a third world war. She doesn't know how to talk to these people. They would laugh at her. They would laugh at her because she's so grossly incompetent to do the job. She's not going to be able to do the job. And everybody that knows her agrees that 5 months ago, they said there's no way she could be running for president. She's incompetent. And then she runs, and because she's a member of this savage machine known as the Democrat Party, and then all of your sons and daughters will end up getting drafted to fight these endless wars that we've been in. I've gotten us out of so many. I was the only president, think of this, in 82 years not to start a war. We dealt with peace through strength. Our enemies are laughing at her. If we win, America will be feared and respected again. Feared's okay. On issue after issue, Kamala broke it, and I will fix it. I will fix it, and I'll fix it fast. On top of it all, Kamala says that she would not do one thing differently from crooked Joe Biden, which in itself is disqualifying. I wouldn't do one thing differently. Take a look, please.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind.
I stood there on the tarmac watching you check your watch.
The chaotic and deadly U.S. evacuation from Afghanistan stunned Americans and the world and cost the lives of 13 U.S. soldiers.
Would you have done something differently?
There is not a thing that comes to mind.
More than 13,000 illegal immigrants convicted of murder have been caught at the border and then released into the United States.
An Afghan national is in custody today after being accused of plotting an election day terrorist attack. The suspect entered the U.S. on a special immigrant visa.
Gut-wrenching new details in the murder of Georgia nursing student Laken Riley. The illegal immigrant suspect, who cops say committed the heinous murder, is a Venezuelan national who crossed the unsecured southern border back in 2022.
2 men investigators say are in the country illegally from Venezuela are charged with capital murder in the death of Jocelyn Nungaray.
A fifth illegal immigrant accused of attacking 2 New York City police officers over the weekend showed no remorse or regret.
Would you have done something differently?
There is not a thing that comes to mind.
Only 18% say the economy is in excellent or good condition.
US inflation has hit a new 40-year high, increasing by 9.1% over the financial year.
Authorities saying Train de Aragua, which has been linked with more than 100 criminal investigations here in the U.S., has now been found operating its criminal enterprise in apartment complexes.
Were you the last person in the room? Yes.
Thank you. And our country is rated 87% wrong track. You know what that means? Wrong track. We're in the wrong track. The country knows it. And that's why we should have absolutely, nobody's ever had a score like that in one re-election. Nobody's ever. And she's a part of Biden. Remember, she's trying to disassociate from him so badly. She doesn't know what to do. She's torn. She doesn't know what to do. She's a part of that whole mess that we have in Washington. And I will tell you that if you want to end this disaster, you have to get out and vote. We all have to get out and vote, vote, vote. I'm thrilled to be joined by all of these great people from the Green Bay area and Wisconsin area. And again, I want to thank Brett for being here and for giving me that really incredible tribute of an endorsement. I'm not going to ask him to come up. He made such a good speech. I watched it. Brett made such a good speech. I don't know if he could do that again. Brett, you did so good. I'd let you do it again, but I think you hit it perfectly. What do you think? We love you, Brett. Thank you. We love this guy. Man, he's something. Oh, that arm. Boom, boom. What a player. What a great guy. I think he's beyond as a person. I think he might even beyond what he was as a player, but that's pretty hard to do. Thank you very much, Brett. Great honor to your family. Thank you. We're also joined by Brett's incredible wife, Deanna, and that son is so good. He's a great soccer player. The son, Taylor, thank you very much. And look at him, he's a little shy. He's a little shy. He's a good soccer player right here, who I think is that's an incredible family. As you know, she fought breast cancer. She won her battle. And she's been an inspiration. She's been an inspiration to everybody. You have been an inspiration. I've heard that. A lot of people, they said that. Thank you, Deanna. Beautiful. Thank you very much. Also with us is another Green Bay football phenom, running back. You may know the name, Quadzilla, the Quad Father, A.J. Dillon. I got to meet him backstage. Get healthy soon, A.J. Get healthy soon. Look at this guy. I met A.J. backstage. I said, this guy is a seriously good-looking athlete. We're going to watch you get better soon. You're going to be in good shape, I think. I hear great. Thank you, A.J., very much. I'd also like to thank a friend of mine for being just a great senator. Very simple. And just a fantastic person, Ron Johnson, Senator Ron Johnson. Great. He's great. And a future great one, he's going to work together. What a tandem. Eric Hovde, and he's doing terrific. Eric, you are doing well. Well, he has my complete and total endorsement, and you're doing well. I saw you're up in the polls like winning. You're winning. That's what we want. That's the guy. Tammy Baldwin is terrible, by the way. And a friend of mine, he said a long time ago, sir, 2016, he said, sir, don't come up here, sir. You can't win here. You can't win. It's a tough state. Don't come on. Tommy Thompson, right? But don't come up, sir. And I said, what do you mean, Tommy? Just don't come up. Look, if anything changes, I'll let you know and you'll come up. But don't waste your time. You have to win other states. This is 2016. I was sort of insulted, but I figured, what the hell? Who knows better than Tommy Thompson, right? About 4 weeks later, I had a couple of good weeks. I get a call, it's Tommy Thompson. Sir, it's time for you to come up, get up here quickly. And we won Wisconsin. Tommy Thompson. You remember that, Tommy? You remember that? You remember that, Tommy? He didn't want me to come up. Then he says, sir, get your ass up here, sir. You're doing good. That's great, Tommy. Thank you. You've been a great friend of mine, actually. And we're doing well now. We're really rocking here, right? They're doing well. Thank you very much. All of you, thank you very much. And House Majority Whip, a highly respected man, a powerful man in Washington, but respected by everybody, Tom Emmer from Minnesota. Thank you. He's a Majority Whip. Majority Whip. That's big stuff. Thank you, Tom, very much. And Representatives Tom, Tiffany, my friend, and Glenn Grothman. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Glenn. Really great, great congressmen and warriors. They're both warriors. And we have another warrior, Byron Donalds. He's my great warrior, too. Great guy. All great people. Congressional candidate who's doing really well, Tony Weed. Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Tony. Tony, you're doing well. He's a winner. And my son-in-law, Michael, who's helped us so much in this campaign, he's been great. I want to thank him, and I want to thank his father and the chairman of the Wisconsin Republican Party, Brian Schimming. Wow, have you been good, Brian? I got to watch his speech on the plane just coming in before I got into the garbage truck. I had a choice, watch your speech, so I delayed the garbage truck a little. You were fantastic, thank you. We're doing well, we're gonna win, Mr. Chairman, right? You're gonna win, we're gonna win. Thank you, Brian, very good, great job. So just in conclusion, here are the facts. Kamala is a radical left Marxist, rated even worse than crazy Bernie Sanders or even Pocahontas herself. Pocahontas. She destroyed our economy. She was an original creator of defund the police movement. And anybody who wants to defund the police for even 1 week or 1 day or 1 second is not worthy of being president of the United States of America. Kamala vowed to abolish ICE, our great ICE heroes. We don't have ICE, so we don't get the tough ones out. These are tough people that love our country. They're incredible. And as California Attorney General, she redefined child sex trafficking, assault with a deadly weapon, and rape of an unconscious person as totally nonviolent crimes. Oh, that's nice. She pledged to confiscate your guns. Would anybody like to give up that gun? I don't think so. I don't think so. And endorsed a total ban on handgun ownership. No more handguns. Let her explain that one. This woman should not be running. By the way, she came in last. You know, she ran against Biden. She came in last, absolutely dead last. She got no votes, he got 14. Whether you like him or not, he got the nomination. They took it away from him like you take candy from a baby. She even called for free sex changes for illegal aliens in detention. And at taxpayer expense, by the way. And she lied about working at McDonald's. I think that's a big thing, too. With your vote this November, we are going to fire Kamala and we are going to save America. We will cut your taxes, end inflation, slash your prices, raise your wages, and bring thousands of factories back to America. And in fact, we're going to bring a lot of them right back to Wisconsin with all those jobs. We will build American, we will buy American, and we will hire American. I will end the war in Ukraine. Would have never happened if I was president. Would have never. Vladimir would never have done that. I will stop the chaos in the Middle East. October 7th would have never happened. All those people would be living today. And I will prevent World War III. We will crush violent crime and give our police the support, protection, resources, and respect they so dearly deserve. We will strengthen and modernize our military. We will build a missile defense shield all around our country, all made in the USA, and a lot of it made right here. We will rebuild our cities, including our capital in Washington, D.C., which is in horrible shape, making them safe, clean, and beautiful again. We will teach our children to love our country, to honor our history, and to always respect our great American flag. And we will put in legislation, anybody burning the American flag, 1 year in jail. We will get critical race theory and transgender insanity the hell out of our schools and fast. And we will keep men out of women's sports. I will defend religious liberty. I will restore free speech. And I will defend the right to keep and bear arms. Your Second Amendment will be safe. After years of building up foreign nations, defending foreign borders, and protecting foreign lands, we are finally going to build up our country. We're going to defend our borders, and we are going to protect our citizens. We are going to protect our land. We are going to protect our country. And we will stop illegal immigration once and for all. We will not be invaded. We will not be occupied. We will not be overrun. We will not be conquered. We will be a free and proud nation once again. We are being invaded. It's incredible. Think of it. We're being invaded by massive numbers. Very little difference between this invasion and the military. They don't wear a uniform. That's about the primary difference. Everyone will prosper. Every family will thrive, and every day will be filled with opportunity and hope and loaded up with the good old American dream. We're going to have the American dream back. But for that to happen, we must defeat Kamala Harris and stop her radical left agenda, and we have to have a landslide that is too big to rig. Got to make it a landslide. For the past 9 years, we have been fighting against the most sinister and corrupt forces on earth. With your vote this election, you can show them once and for all that this nation does not belong to them. This nation belongs to you. It belongs to you. It was hardworking patriots like you who built this country. And 6 days from now, it is hardworking patriots like you who are going to save our country. You're going to save our country. After all we have been through together, we stand on the verge of the 4 greatest years in American history. We can do that. We can do that. It seems so unlikely. It seems unlikely, but we can do that. With your help, from now until Election Day, we will restore America's promise, and we will take back the nation that we love. We are one people, one family, and one glorious nation under God. We will never give in. We will never give up. We will never back down, and we will never, ever surrender. Together we will fight, 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 and we will win, win, win. November 5th will be the most important day in the history of our country. We're going to turn things around, and together we will make America powerful again. We will make America wealthy again. We will make America healthy again. We will make America strong again. We will make America proud again. We will make America safe again. And we will make America great again. Thank you very much. Thank you, Wisconsin. God bless you all.
Thank you for tuning into the live stream. Double tap your screen. Let's get the likes up. Subscribe to the channel. One thing I have to say is this man is 78 years old and he is working his butt off, basically. He doesn't want anything to stand in his way when the winner is announced. And I respect that. Okay. He's been going hard. Most days he's doing 2 to 4 events per day. And that's wild. That's just wild. I mean, the vice president is doing what she has to do too. However, this man is going hard. Very, very hard. Okay, let's go listen to Hannity interview with 45th. Let's get it.
Is there rhetoric putting your life in jeopardy? Further jeopardy?
I can look. You have a lot of very
deranged people in this country.
You have a lot
and
of
assassination squads.
People. I looked at the 2 that we're talking about. I'm disappointed that the FBI hasn't opened up some of these phones. And one guy had 6 phones, and the other one had 3 apps. And 2 of the 3 apps supposedly were foreign-based. I mean, maybe there was something to it. They should be looking at it. They should be opening up those phones. Why haven't they opened up the 6 phones? And why haven't they opened up the 3 apps? So the first one had 3 apps, and I think they were encrypted, and they were foreign. Think of it. These were foreign apps. Wouldn't you think they'd be opening them up?
We need
It's just strange. Look, we have a strange situation going on. I will say this. I don't think there's ever been a president that's had more support and strong support than I have. When you mentioned Madison Square Garden before, everybody said, you can't do it. How are you going to ever fill up Madison Square Garden? I said, well, I filled up the Nassau Coliseum, and it's almost the same size. And we could have filled it up 3 or 4 times. I mean, the crowds there were the same thing. And when I saw that, I said, let's go for Madison
New Jersey
Square.
wasn't that small. You've had a number of big rallies.
New Jersey
Let me
was,
ask you
yeah,
this.
New Jersey was 107,000 people.
If you were president and your opponent was being targeted in our country by Iranian assassination squads and you're president, what would you do?
I would tell them, and even if I didn't like my opponent, they can't love me because I'm very critical of them, but I'm critical for a reason, because they don't know what they're doing. Look, we have wars. The Middle East is blowing up. Ukraine would have never been attacked by Russia if I were president. October 7th would have never happened in Israel. All those people would be alive. We wouldn't have had inflation. We would have had Afghanistan, the most embarrassing day in our history, would never have taken place like that. We would have kept Battleground because it was 1 hour, the biggest Air Force base, one of the biggest in the world. We gave it up to China. China occupies it now, not Afghanistan. We gave it up to China. 1 hour away from where China builds its nuclear weapons. Wouldn't it be a great thing if we had that? We walked away. We have incompetent people running our country. They're very dangerous people. They're dangerous because they're incompetent. She's grossly incompetent. Plus, she's a radical left person. And any person that has her ideology, I mean, you could go through her ideology. It's the ideology of a communist. And this country's not ready for that. And I don't think it ever will be. If it is, we're in big trouble.
Let's go to your closing arguments. McDonald's, Al Smith dinner, 3 hours on Joe Rogan, your rallies at Madison Square Garden. I've known you a long time, long before you ever decided to get into this crazy political world that you're in. I think I know you well enough to see that you're having a lot of fun. There's a lot at stake, but I can tell that you are definitely having a good time. Am I wrong in my perception?
Not only are you right when you say that, when you say good time, it's hard to say I'm having a good time because, you know, yesterday I did 3 rallies. I did, you know, I've
gone
58 days in a row, no days off.
Yeah.
I'm amazed. She's taken 2 days off in the last few days. I said, you know, you're getting down. I think it was down to like, we were down to 14 days and she was taking days off all the time. And, you know, she only does, you know, she'll do like one little event. And they don't get any people at their events. You know, they bus them in. I don't bus anybody. They bus them in. They don't get people. And when they leave, you saw Beyonce. They came in to see Beyonce. Beyonce didn't sing. They all left. And she's standing there making a speech. There was nobody there. And everybody was screaming and cursing because of what happened. Look, we have a real campaign. This is a movement like we've never had in this country. And it's not a question of, am I having a good time? I think we're making tremendous progress. We have to save the country. Our country, we are a nation in decline. I say it, we're a nation in serious decline. And we can't go through another 4 years. I don't think we could go through another year like this. We have criminals coming into our country at a level that's never been seen before. And to me, the biggest thing, I know the polls say the economy and inflation and everything, but, and the border is number 3. I think the border is number 1. For a really great American, the border is number 1 because we're allowing tens of thousands. Think of it. This is announced the Border Patrol, which is so great. They did things which they've never done before. They announced last week how many of different crimes have coming in. They said 13,099 exact murderers, people that murdered people that were in jail, have been released into our country. They said 16,000 drug lords, drug dealers. I mean, everything's exactly detailed onto. They never did that before. They announced the total, but they wouldn't say what the crimes were. Think of it. They've released over 13,000 convicted killers. Many of them killed far more than one person. And they're now roaming the fields of our country. We made America great. And now we're going to make America great again. We're going to make it great again. And we have the formula. It's down pat. This country, we're going to have jobs. We're going to have countries pouring back into our country. You're going to see something. And now I know everybody in Washington. I didn't know anybody. I was not a Washington person. I was rarely there. I know everybody. I know the good, the strong, the weak, the stupid. I know everybody. And we're going to make this country great again. And we have to save our country. If they won this election, our country is finished. She's going to raise everybody's taxes. Every company is going to move out of America. We're not going to have any. She would force them out of America. She doesn't know what she's doing. She's not a smart person, and she doesn't know what she's doing. We're going to use certain things against other countries that have taken advantage of us, having to do with the most beautiful word in the dictionary called tariff. And we're going to make so much money in this country. We're going to pay off our debt. We're going to do things that nobody thought possible, and it's going to happen all quickly.
I'm going to make a prediction. Your threat of tariffs is going to prevent them from putting tariffs on us.
So in Mexico, which is a real threat to us, by the way, in 2 ways. They're killing hundreds of thousands of people by letting fentanyl, another thing, come through our border. We should stop it. I had it stopped. I had it very close to stopped. I had the strongest border in history. Now we have the worst border in the history of the world. I had the strongest border. The day you saw the chart, the day I left office, I had the strongest border in the history of our country. Now we have the worst border ever in the world. There's never been a border in the world where 21 million people were allowed to come across almost at one time. It's crazy what we're doing. Mm-hmm. But we're going to have a country that's going to be strong and respected again. We're going to have a country where the taxes are going down, where the quality of life is going up. We're going to have a country. They don't respect us. You know, it's interesting. I went to Abe of Japan, Shinzo. He was a great friend. He was assassinated. He was a great gentleman. I said, Shinzo, your deal with us is horrible. He said, I know you were going to come. I said, what do you mean? He said, I knew at some point you would come. For 25 years, nobody came. He said, no American ever came to renegotiate the deal. I knew you were going to do it. And I renegotiated the deal. And I was stuck with a bad deal to start off with. We had a bad deal with Japan. This is Japan. But I renegotiated with South Korea, with this. Now, don't forget, I'm negotiating from a bad place because they have these deals that were made by people that were either really stupid or corrupt. They had to be corrupt to make these deals. We have the worst trade deals. I was fixing these trade deals. I was taking care of our country. But the bottom line is this: we're going to be respected again. We're going to make America great again. And there's nothing in the world I'd rather be doing. I don't want to be in some beautiful beach. I don't want to be sitting in some faraway hotel where it's very nice and watching television or doing something. I want to be doing what I'm doing. It's so incredible. We've made such, and this is a movement. By the way, this is a movement maybe like the world has never seen. MAGA, Make America Great Again. The world has never seen a movement like this. And I think we're doing very well. We're leading everything. We're against the opposition. And the opposition is also the fake news media. They're terrible.
Awful.
They're really terrible.
So we're not going to have to, Americans won't have to settle, as the Washington Post suggests. You may have to lower your expectations. It sounded a lot like Jimmy Carter telling America to put on a sweater. Look, we're not going to lower expectations and get a townhouse instead of a real house with a backyard. You could have a dog, and you could actually, we should have higher aspirations. Wouldn't oil be that? It would neutralize Putin, it would neutralize Iran, and it would make America rich.
Interest rates are coming down big. Energy prices are coming down. I'm going to have everybody's energy bill from a year from January 20th, when you take office, cut in half. When that happens, everything else comes down with it. Oil is so big. It's so important. And everything's going to come down. But we're going to have inexpensive energy. We're going to have companies moving to our country at record clips, because otherwise they're going to have to pay to do business with our country. And you don't have to pay if you build your plant inside our country and you hire our workers. We are going to have a country the likes of which, and we were getting there. We were very close. Look, I had the greatest economy in the history of our country. I met with two pollsters, McLaughlin and Fabrizio. They said, if George Washington came back from the dead and he brought along Abraham Lincoln as his vice president, they couldn't beat you, sir. And then 2 days later, we had the period of time where we had the COVID.
Trump says he beat Lincoln and Washington combined.
They said it. I mean, they said it. But
so if you get back to the White House, I get the first interview, right?
You have a deal. No, you've been a great friend. You're a very talented guy.
You're very
and
nice.
You've always been fair. I don't want any special favors. I just want fairness. You've always been fair, and I appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in to the live stream. Double tap your screen, subscribe to the channel. The reason why I say the 45th may as well be the 47th, most likely will be the 47th, is because people are comparing 2016 to 2020 and 2020 to 2024 in every single way you can look at it. Look at your electricity bill. Look at what you were paying 5-6 years ago, and look what you're paying now. Look at your grocery bills. Look at your gas prices. And as if that is not even enough, look at the border. And say that is not enough, look at what is happening in Ukraine and Russia. Of course, we know there's always been tension, but nothing like this happened from 2016 to 2020. Look at your mortgage rate. Your mortgage rate right now is like, what in the world is going on? You know what I mean? Like, so it's like, even if you want to think about it, it's like, I just want to vote for peace. Okay, I'm voting for peace. If you have peace, everybody is Gucci. You know what I mean? Like, these people say they want peace, but then they keep sending billions of munitions to these countries to continue what you're saying you don't want. How does that make any sense? Man, double tap your screen and subscribe to the channel, man. We are voting for performance, actions, not feelings and emotions, because your feelings and your emotions do not pay your bills. Okay, this is for the people that actually pay bills, because I got 2 girls that I am responsible for, and my feelings and emotions don't pay my bills. Okay, that does not put food on my table or my daughter's table. Okay, it is performance and actions that pays the bills over here in this house. All right, let's see what the polls are talking about.
This election really is almost over, and it's so close. We've been telling you that day after day. This race is basically tied. So what we're going to do today and tomorrow is to give you the case for if each candidate wins, what is behind their victory. Today, we're going to look at Donald Trump. If he wins, why will that have been? Now, if you're a Harris supporter, don't throw stuff at Harry Etten. We're going to cover the flip side of it tomorrow. CNN senior data reporter Harry Etten is here, and we're looking at the case for a Donald Trump victory, starting with what I do think has been long one of the most overlooked numbers of this election, but could be one of the most important.
Yeah, all right. So, look, just 28% of Americans, voters, think the country is going in the right direction, is on the right track. And I want you to put that into a historical perspective for you. Okay, what's the average percentage of the public that thinks that the country is on the right track when the incumbent party loses? It's 25%. That 25% looks an awful bit like that 28% up there. It doesn't look anything like this 42% doesn't look anything like this 28%. So the bottom line is, very few Americans think the country is on the right track at this particular point. It tracks much more with when the incumbent party loses than with it wins. In fact, I went back through history. There isn't a single time in which 28% of the American public thinks the country is going on the right track in which the incumbent party actually won. They always lose when just 28% of the country believes that the country is on the right track.
It is you are swimming upstream if you're trying to win in this environment. Also, President Biden. On a micro level, a lot of the coverage today is over something President Biden said. On the macro level, what kind of a weight is he on the Harris campaign?
Yeah, so, Joe Biden isn't on the ballot, but he's certainly in the minds of Americans, right? So I went back and I looked, okay, was the successor of the same party when the president's net approval rating was negative at this point, which Joe Biden's most definitely is? He's 15 points underwater. Now, we don't know if Kamala Harris is going to succeed Joe Biden, but we know back in 2008, George W. Bush, his approval rating was down in the 20s. Did a Republican succeed George W. Bush? No. How about in 1968? Lyndon Baines Johnson, his net approval rating was negative. Did a Democrat succeed Lyndon Baines Johnson? No. How about in 52? Harry S. Truman, his approval rating was in the 20s, if not the upper teens. Did a Democrat succeed Harry S. Truman in 52? My memory, no. No, as Kate Baldwin says.
Dianu.
Dianu.
Separate story.
Well
close. Wrong time of the year.
Well played.
Dwight Eisenhower, a Republican, succeeded Harry S. Truman. So the bottom line is, for Kamala Harris to win, she'd have to break history, be a Democrat to succeed Joe Biden when Biden's approval rating is way underwater at this point.
Again, it could happen. It just doesn't in recent history for sure. Okay, registration numbers, Harry.
Yeah, Republicans have been registering voters in big, huge numbers. They have been gaining in party registration versus the Democrats in the swing states with party registration. We're talking Arizona. I think it's a 5-point. They've expanded their lead from 5 points from where it was back in 2020. How about Nevada? Big Republican registrations there. They like the early vote. How about North Carolina? Big Republican registration games. How about Pennsylvania? We spoke about it before a few months ago. Big Republican party registration gains versus from where they were 4 years ago. So Republicans are putting more Republicans in the electorate. The Democratic number versus the Republican number has shrunk. And so the bottom line is, if Republicans win, come next week, Donald Trump comes next week, the signs all along will have been obvious. We would look at the right direction being very low, Joe Biden's approval rating being very low, and Republicans really registering numbers. You can't say you weren't warned.
Again, this is the data which supports the idea of a Trump victory. Tomorrow, viewers, you will get the other side.
Stay tuned.
Kate.
It's not even the content, but sometimes Harry's delivery is just very scary. You're just a very scary man. You're a very scary man. Thank you, Harry. Again, tomorrow, the other side of it.
They're talking about the swing states as they were just laying out very aggressively. And so try this theory on for size. The swing states of today may not be the swing states in play 4 years from now. Let us go to CNN's Zach Wolf for much more on this. Zach, explain.
Well, you know, to all the people, the vast majority of Americans who live in a state that is not a swing state,
You've seen the polls. My mic was off. You've seen the polls. I strongly believe the 45th will be the 47th, but that is my opinion. And I'm just looking at what is going on in the country with the pricing and every other thing that most Americans are complaining about, because Americans are not happy, bro. Everybody's complaining about the prices. Okay. Let's see. Kamala Harris. I know most people say, oh no, Genesis, don't play Kamala Harris. But that's what we do here. We listen to both sides. All right, here we go. I give you the Vice President of the United States, who is currently applying for a position of the President of the United States. Kamala Harris, let's get it.
Back in North Carolina. Thank you all, and all the incredible leaders who are here. Thank you all, everyone, for taking time out of your busy lives to be here this afternoon. I thank you. Thank you. And I want to thank my dear friend, Governor Cooper, Roy Cooper, Attorney General Josh Stein, who will be your next governor, Representatives Nickel, Ross, Fushi, and Mayor Baldwin. I thank you all and all the leaders who are here. So Raleigh, early voting, as Jennifer said, has started. Here in Wake County, you can vote early now through Saturday, November 2nd. And we need you to vote early, North Carolina. Because we have just 6 days left in one of the most consequential elections of our lifetime. And we have work to do. But we like hard work. Hard work is good work. Hard work is joyful work. And make no mistake, we will win. We will win. Yes, we will. And we will win. We will win because when you know what you stand for, you know what to fight for. And we know we have an opportunity in this election to turn the page on a decade of Donald Trump, who has been trying to keep us divided and afraid of each other. We know that is who he is, but North Carolina, that is not who we are. That is not who we are. And it is time for a new chapter where we stop with the pointing fingers at each other. And instead, let us lock arms with one another, knowing we have so much more in common than what separates us. It is time for a new generation of leadership in America. And I am ready with you. I am ready to offer that leadership as the next president of the United States of America. And North Carolina, you know, I've been here many, many times over the years, and you know this. I am not afraid of tough fights. For decades as a prosecutor and as the top law enforcement officer of our biggest state, I won fights against big banks that ripped off homeowners, against for-profit colleges that scammed veterans and students, against predators who abused women and children, against cartels that trafficked in guns and drugs and human beings. And if you give me the chance to fight on your behalf as president, there is nothing in the world that will stand in my way. And look, we know who Donald Trump is. This is not someone who is thinking about how to make your life better. This is someone who is unstable, obsessed with revenge, consumed with grievance, and out for unchecked power. In less than 90 days, either he or I will be in the Oval Office. Differences between he and I, but I would say a major contrast is this. If he is elected on day one, Donald Trump will walk into that office with an enemies list. When I am elected, I will walk in with a to-do list full of priorities about what I will get done for you, the American people. And at the top of my list is bringing down your cost of living. That will be my focus every single day as president. I will give a middle-class tax cut to over 100 million Americans. Enact the first ever federal ban on price gouging on groceries. And fight to make sure that hardworking Americans can actually afford a place to live. And if you are caring for an elderly parent, my plan will cover the cost of home care under Medicare so that seniors can get the help and care they need to stay in their own homes. And my plan will lower the cost of child care, cut taxes for small businesses, and lower health care costs, because I believe health care should be a right and not just a privilege of those who can afford it. On the other hand, Donald Trump's answer to the financial pressures you face is the same as last time. Another $1 trillion in tax cuts for billionaires and big corporations. And this time, he will pay for it with a 20% Trump national sales tax on everyday basic necessities, which will cost the average American family nearly $4,000 more a year. On top of that, you will pay even more if Donald Trump finally gets his way and ends the Affordable Care Act, which will throw, if he were to win, which would throw millions of Americans off their health insurance and take us back to when insurance companies had the power to deny people with pre-existing conditions. You remember what that was like? Well, we are not going back. We are not going back. Because ours is a fight for the future. And it is a fight for freedom. Like the fundamental freedom of a woman to be able to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what to do. And we all remember how we got here. Donald Trump hand-selected 3 members of the United States Supreme Court with the intention that they would undo the protections of Roe v. Wade. They did. And now in America, 1 in 3 women lives in a state with a Trump abortion ban, including in North Carolina and every state in the South except Virginia. Think about that. Many with no exceptions, even for rape and incest, which is immoral. And Donald Trump, understand, he's not done. He would ban abortion nationwide. He would restrict access to birth control, put IVF treatments at risk, and force states to monitor women's pregnancies. Just Google Project 2025. Just Google it. Read the plans yourself and let us agree. One does not have to abandon their faith or deeply held beliefs to agree. The government should not be making that decision for you. Not the government. And when Congress passes a bill to restore reproductive freedom, as President of the United States, I will proudly sign it into law. So, North Carolina, I am asking for your vote. I am asking for your vote. And here is my pledge to you. As your president, I pledge to seek common ground and common sense solutions to the challenges you face. I am not looking to score political points. I am looking to make progress. And I pledge to you, I will listen to experts. I will listen to those impacted by the decisions I make and to people who disagree with me. You know, see, this is the thing, because we know we're actually fighting for a democracy. And unlike Donald Trump, I don't believe people who disagree with me are the enemy. He wants to put them in jail. I'll give them a seat at the table. And I pledge to be a president for all Americans and to always put country above party and self. So, North Carolina, it all comes down to this. We are here together because we love our country. That's why we are here. And when you love something, you fight for it. And I do believe it is one of the highest forms of patriotism to fight for the ideals of our country, and to fight to realize the promise of America. And I have always believed in our nation's, yes, and like all of us here, I have always believed in our nation's promise because I have lived it. I grew up as a child of the civil rights movement. My parents would take me to marches when I was in a stroller, where people of every walk of life came together to fight for the ideals of freedom and opportunity. I've lived the promise of America. I saw how hard my mother worked to give her daughters the same chances our country gave her. Growing up, I was blessed to have family by blood and family by love who instilled in me the values that have always defined our nation best. Values like community, compassion, and faith. I've lived the promise of America. And I've spent my life fighting for the people who have been hurt and counted out, but never stopped believing in our country that anything is possible. I've lived the promise of America. And I see the promise in all of you. In the women who refuse to accept a future without reproductive freedom. In the men who support them. In Republicans who never voted for a Democrat before but put the Constitution of the United States before party. I see the promise of America in all the young leaders who are voting for the first time. Let me see you. I love you guys, because you are rightly impatient for change. You young leaders, you've only known the climate crisis and are leading the charge to protect our planet and our future. You young leaders who grew up with active shooter drills, who are trying to keep our schools safe. You who have known fewer rights than your mothers and grandmothers and are standing up to fight for freedom, to make your own decisions about your own bodies. None of this for you young leaders is theoretical. This is not theoretical for you. It is not political for you. For our young leaders, this is your lived experience. And I see you, and I see your power. And I am so proud of you. Can we applaud all our first-time voters and young leaders who are here? Let's applaud them. See? Our future is bright. I'm telling you, our future is bright. So, North Carolina, we have 6 days to get this done. And no one can sit on the sidelines. So let's spend the next 6 days so that when we look back at these 6 days, we will know we did everything we could. So right now it's time to go out from here and knock on some doors. Time to text and call some voters. Time to reach out to family and friends and classmates and coworkers and neighbors. And as we do, let us please be intentional about building community. Let us please be intentional about building coalitions. Because through all of that, we strengthen our nation. because we know and will always remember the vast majority of us have so much more in common than what separates us. And we are all in this together. So remember, your vote is your voice, and your voice is your power. So, North Carolina, I then ask you, are you ready to make your voices heard? Do we believe in freedom? Do we believe in opportunity? Do we believe in the promise of America? And are we ready to fight for it? And when we fight, we win. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.
Thank you for tuning into the live stream. Of course, JD Vance and Tulsi Gabbard had a town hall today in Pennsylvania. And we're going to see that right now. For some reason, it's a little delayed on my phones. Well, what do I think about the vice president? I think she's doing what she's supposed to do, saying the things she's supposed to say, reproductive rights, which a lot of women want. However, I do believe that there's so many issues going on in the United States that you cannot only be talking about reproductive rights because there's other issues, you know, and even women are saying, you know what, we had better economy during the 45th. And that's why they're voting for him because, I mean, it's just what it is. All right, let's go. JD Vance, Tulsi Gabbard.
I appreciate that. If any.
But look, we're thrilled to be here. I'm thrilled to be in Pennsylvania. We actually recorded an episode of Joe Rogan this morning, so we started out in Austin, Texas, and we're closing out.
How long was it, JD? How long were you in Rogan's
Almost
studio?
4 hours. Almost 4 hours. So I've officially done more interview time than Kamala Harris has the entire campaign just today. So we're. Look, driving in here, the beautiful Appalachian Mountains, I love being here. I love this part of our country. I love this part of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And in 6 short days, we're going to win, my friends, and make Donald J. Trump the next president. So with that, I'm looking forward to tonight. Tulsi, thank you for doing this. We're thrilled. Let's give another round of applause to Tulsi Gabbard. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, we are right here at home tonight, JD, not only because we are surrounded by so many great patriots who love our country as we do, but we're also surrounded by many men and women who have worn the uniform as we have. And I'm looking forward to the conversation that we have. So we'll kick it off. First, we have David, who's got a question for you.
Hey, hello. My name is David. I'm a 3-tour Afghanistan combat veteran. Flew Apaches there.
Thank you for your service, David.
Spent a lot of time in that country. And let me just say thank you both for your service and your continued service, ma'am. And for all the other veterans that are here, too, thank you for giving me the chance. I appreciate that. If anybody's not noticed, outside the gate, or the hangar there is the Abbey Gate 13, the people that died on August the 26th, 2021. And I'm kind of saddened that there has been no accountability for that.
Yes, sir.
So I'd like to know, what is President Trump going to do to help get accountability for that event?
David, I appreciate the question, and it's an important one, and thank you for your service, but most importantly, thanks to everybody, including David, for their service in this room. We're thrilled to have you, and we're thrilled to put a president back in the White House who actually respects the sacrifice of American military veterans, and that's exactly what we're going to do. You know, David, like President Trump, I've spent a lot of time with the families of the 13 brave Americans who died at Abbey Gate. And one of the things that has really affected me is the recognition that a lot of these guys, they're not mad. They're, of course, heartbroken, but they're not angry that their loved ones lost their lives, because they recognize that when you put on the uniform of the United States, sometimes that's what's happened, right? That's what a lot of people sign up for. What they're really angry about is the fact that their loved ones died and there's been no accountability for the disaster that led to their death in the first place. That's what pisses them off. They're heartbroken to have lost their kids, but they're angry that no one has paid any price for the fact that those kids died because our leadership failed to do its job. I mean, think about this. You get out of Afghanistan, and I think it was the right decision to get out of Afghanistan eventually, but you don't close down the airport before you get out. We basically turned brave Americans into TSA agents in the most dangerous, terrorism-infested area of the entire world. And frankly, we may have been lucky that only 13 Americans died. It could have been much, much higher given the chaos of the situation that was going on the ground. And not one person, not a single general, not a single Pentagon bureaucrat, not a single person who controlled how that withdrawal was conducted has faced any consequences. But I believe that the first person that we are going to fire, and there's going to be more after that, but the first person we get to fire who had a role in Abbey Gate, her name is Kamala Harris, and we're going to fire her in 6 days. But the last thing I'll say, David, is after that, after we fire Kamala Harris, we have got to get some accountability. Who made the decision to close down Battleground before we had everybody out of Afghanistan? Who made the decision to put our troops in that situation to begin with? Who made the decision to not evacuate any of our $80 billion worth of equipment before we closed up shop and left? There has to be answers when people fail. And one of the things you'll see is the media, of course, attacks Donald Trump because there are people that criticize him. And what is almost always true is that the people who are most loudly criticizing Donald J. Trump are people that he fired because they screwed up. Those are the people that are attacking him. And I think I speak for every person in this room. I'd rather have a president who fires the people who screw up than the president who protects their jobs when they screw up. And that's why we got to get new leadership.
I think that's something that President Trump understands very clearly, is that when you are a leader of any organization, you're responsible for what happens under your leadership. And President Biden, obviously, as you said, fired no one, but it shocks me even that within our military, none of these leaders did the right thing and said, you know what, we screwed up, I resign. Not a single one.
That's right. It's a very good point.
All right, next we've got a question coming from Ron. Here we go.
Hi, Senator, Congresswoman, thanks for being with us today. Appreciate it. I'm Ron, retired from the Air Force after 30 years. Air Force. I can say who. My question regards armed forces recruiting and retention. Services are having difficulty making goals just now. Went through the COVID era with a mandated vaccine. We know DOD discharged thousands of troops for refusal to take that vaccine. And we have a lot of young people today who are just frankly unfit to begin military service. And I know you've got a Make America Healthy plan. Could you talk a little about that and how that can address some of these issues?
Yeah, well, Ron, I'm happy to take a first stab at that question. And then, Tulsi, I'd love to hear your thoughts, too, because, of course, You know, I think Tulsi understands as well as anybody why the military might be having recruitment challenges in the 21st century. And I think there are a couple of things going on, Ron. Is number one, you hit the nail on the head. Why were we firing brave, young, and healthy Marines, soldiers, sailors, and airmen because they wouldn't take the COVID shot? We should let people make these decisions themselves, not throw them out of the military because of it. You know, but of course, that's not just thousands of Americans who were thrown out of the military, and it was a disgrace, and Donald Trump and I have promised that we're going to offer all of those people a return to service with back pay on top of it. That's important. But Ron, think about the effect that has on morale. What does it do when you fire people for simply exercising their own judgment about what they want to put into their own body? What does that say to the next generation of soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines? What does it say to their family members? Because we know, I mean, in my family, my grandma, my mamaw, had 6 grandchildren. 3 of us enlisted in the United States Marine Corps out of high school. Very often, military service is a family affair. So what we did, I think, was a massive slap in the face to our troops, but it also really, really hurt morale. And the final thing I'll say, and again, I want to hear Tulsi's views on this too, is people want to sign up for the United States military because they love their country and they want to engage in public service. They don't want to sign up in the military because of a bunch of progressive ideas. They don't want to be enforcers of one political party's dogma. They want to serve the whole United States of America. And I think unfortunately, whether it's DEI training or, you know, you have our State Department funding progressive politics in foreign countries, like why do your tax dollars need to be funneled through the State Department to do like trans pride parades in the Czech Republic? Like, what does that have to do with the America's national interest? If you, even if you agree with that, and I imagine none of us do, but even if you agree with it, that has nothing to do with America's national interest. So why are our taxpayers funding that stuff? But when you do that, it makes people not want to serve their country because they're worried they're not serving the whole United States of America. They're serving Kamala Harris's radical agenda, and that's going to stop the minute Donald J. Trump becomes president.
You know, JD, I want to go back to what you said in response to the first question that we had, with the fact that every single one of us who's here, anyone watching from home, any one of us who's raised our right hand and volunteered, the less than 1% of all Americans who volunteer to serve in our armed forces, we do so, and our families know that that service and that volunteerism may require us to pay the ultimate price. And we do so willingly because of love for our country and our commitment to defending the safety, security, and freedom of the American people. What we don't sign up for is to be used as cannon fodder by politicians who are trying to fund the military-industrial complex or make themselves look tough. And so the very least that our men and women in uniform deserve, that our veterans deserve from our leadership, the president, our commander-in-chief, leaders in Congress, is to have our back.
Amen.
And so when you talk about make America healthy again, too often, and we all got stories, but too often, you know, they make investments, say, okay, you walk in basic training. I enlisted, went to basic training at Fort Jackson, and you know, you go through that training, you know, you serve in the Air Force. They invest in turning civilians into warriors. Then you go and spend your time in service, and when it's time to go and you get your final DD 214 and you walk out, for a lot of folks, they feel lost because for the first time, you kind of feel alone. That you can't just go to the military hospital, or you can't, you know, you don't have your sergeant major telling you what time to wake up and when you get to eat and when you get to sleep. And so when we look at the Veterans Affairs Department, for example, when we have our brothers and sisters who are struggling, who've gone and fought in war zones and have come home and are struggling with those internal battles, too many of them are feeling like their only choice is to take their own lives to end their pain. That means our leaders have failed our brothers and sisters. Why is it, even at that point, they are still not able to get the care that they need? I've had friends who've gone into the VA at that moment where they felt like they had no other option. They were ready to take their own lives. They either couldn't get an appointment, or when they did walk in, they were handed a bag full of drugs.
Yep.
A bag full of drugs that made their problems worse, not better, and that didn't actually deal with the real challenges they were facing. So when we talk about what is President Trump's plan to make America healthy again look like for our men and women in uniform and for our veterans, it's investing in the person, our fellow American, from the time they join the military, throughout their time in service, making sure that they're getting the care that they need, not just drugs or Band-Aids to cover up the visible or invisible wounds. Making sure that when you go into that dining facility, you actually have healthy and nutrition options to eat, not just crap that's going to make you sick. That when you go to the doctor, they're not just going to give you pills to cover up whatever pain you are experiencing. And that when it comes time to lay down the uniform, when your service is complete, that you're able to go, as with President Trump's accomplishment in passing the Choice Act, that you're able to go to the provider of your choice, whether that be at the VA or in your local doctor's office, and get the care that you need. And I just want to close by sharing a personal story, because I experienced what a difference this made in my own personal life. I was a member of Congress representing Hawaii. It was the 2nd Congressional District, the rural parts of the state. And there was a Vietnam veteran named Andrew Jamila. He'd been awesome. He was a local leader. He was like the unofficial mayor of his hometown of Waimanalo on the island of Oahu. He called me up one day. Thank God he had my personal cell phone number. And he said, "Tulsi, I just had a heart attack, and I'm at the hospital down the street." We lived like 20 minutes from each other. I'm at the hospital down the street. They tell me if they can't have open heart surgery right now, then I may not survive. The VA hospital, which was about 40 minutes drive over the mountains to the other side of the island, said they would not cover this surgery that would save his life, that he had to get into an ambulance and take that 40-minute drive to get to the VA. His doctor said, "You might not make it, Andrew. You might not survive." And so thankfully I was able to help him, and it was because of the Choice Act that he was able to get the care that he needed, that he survived that heart attack and was able to live another day.
It's awesome.
Where is Cindy at? Our next question is coming from Cindy. Thank you.
Welcome to Bedford County. I want to thank you for recognizing the veterans in the audience and our concerns. Thank you both for your service then. Thank you for your service now, as they are both equally important. When my dad, who I'm very proud of, came home from Vietnam, he wasn't educated on the health benefits and services that he earned and was entitled to. When I got out of the Marine Corps in 1996, I was not educated on the health benefits and services I earned and was entitled to. When my nephews, whom I am also very proud of, got out of the military in the mid-2000s, they were not educated on the benefits that they earned and was entitled to. The first time I registered and voted was for President Trump because we needed change. We still need change. What will you and your administration do to help educate the veterans on the health benefits and services they've earned and health benefits they are entitled to? Semper Fi, thank you.
Well, Cindy, Semper Fi, and thank you for the question, and thank you for your not just your service, but your whole family's service. That's an amazing testament to the American tradition of military service. But I actually have a somewhat similar story, though luckily it didn't have the same personal consequence for me. When I got out of the Marine Corps in 2007, I went straight to Ohio State University. Don't hold it against me. I know we're in Pennsylvania. And, I signed up for a student health plan, and it was a lot of money. Right, and I didn't have anybody helping me out. I was on Pell Grants, and things were pretty tight because I was, I didn't come from a family of means. I didn't come from a family of money, and I had no idea that because of a law that had been passed while I was in the Marine Corps, that I could get free health care through the VA. I think it was for 5 years after I got out of the United States Marine Corps, and I had no idea. And so I spent hundreds of dollars on health insurance premiums until somebody kind of just said, hey, why don't you go to the VA and get health care service? And I said, I don't think I'm allowed to. And they said, I know that you are. And that's what changed that for me and saved me probably thousands of dollars of health care expenses over the next few years. And I think that what we have to do is the Veterans Administration needs to cooperate with Department of Defense and make sure that whether it's the last month or the last week, when folks are getting out of active military service, they need to be educated about what the services that are available so they can take advantage of what they're owed by their own government. That's got to change. And to Tulsi's point, this is really about keeping the commitments that American taxpayers and the American nation makes to its people who put on the uniform and offer to risk it all for our shared freedom and certainly for our shared prosperity as a country. Here's another thing that's very unusual to me is you've got a lot of Americans right now who are veterans who are sleeping on park benches, who are sleeping under bridges, who don't have access to the care that they need. Well, my attitude is if the politicians and the Pentagon bureaucrats want to send people off to war, they ought to keep their commitments to people when those folks come home from war. We've got to stop this. We just have to do better.
What you just said, JD, I think is so central to the changes that we need to make in a very simple thing of making it so that the DOD and the VA work together.
That's right.
A lot of people, those of us who have gone through this know, but the fact that you spend your time in service, and whether you've deployed or not, you've got a probably pretty thick medical record. The VA has no access to your DOD medical records. No access. So you got to go and bring pieces of paper, and they got to literally scan those pieces of paper into a different database. When I first got to Congress, I asked why. Like, that's crazy. That doesn't make sense. I asked for a printout of every single veteran in my district so that I could help inform them of the services that were available to them. They literally printed out on an old dot matrix printer, you know, with the holes on the edges with the perforated lines, and gave me this huge stack. But the reason why they said that the two systems don't talk to each other was because of some government contract that someone signed.
Wow.
President Trump's a problem solver. I guarantee you he'll find a way to solve this problem.
That's exactly right.
All right, next up, we have Julie.
Hello, Senator, Colonel. I'm a retired United States Army soldier. Since I've left service, I've continued my education by obtaining a master's degree in counseling as well as a PhD in criminal justice. So according to the research, 14% of our homeless population in America are veterans.
Wow.
Well, that number includes 7% of an increase just in the last 4 years under the Biden-Harris administration. Our veterans watch as the current administration puts illegal migrants up in hotels. What will you do to change that policy, and will you help find solutions for those homeless veterans?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Well, thank you, Julie. And here's a basic principle that I think that we could do on practically day one of the Trump administration. We could say that no American tax dollars go to housing illegal immigrants while veterans are homeless in the United States of America. Why? Again, to me, this is about duties and obligations, right? Veterans understand duties and obligations as well as anybody. We make a sacred compact between our nation's veterans. We say we're going to send you off to places, sometimes places, to Tulsi's point, that you never should have been sent to in the first place. But when you come home, there are certain obligations we're going to meet. And God forbid, if you don't come home, we're going to meet those obligations to your family. The fact that we have so many people who did their end of the bargain and the government doesn't do its end of the bargain is a scandal, and it needs to stop on day one of the Trump administration. It's so unacceptable. But, you know, Julie, your point drives home a related point here, which is that, or your question drives home a related point, which is that veterans are very much members of the community, and veterans are affected by the same policies and the same problems that everybody else is, right? Sometimes they're affected more significantly, sometimes a little less significantly. But why do we have 14% of our homeless population who are veterans, and why have we seen such a significant increase? Because housing has gotten totally unaffordable over the last 4 years. There is a direct connection between increased housing costs and increased homelessness. I believe in the state of Pennsylvania, housing costs have increased by about 40% just since Kamala Harris became the Vice President of the United States. So if we want to fix the veterans' homelessness problem, let's make housing more affordable for all America's citizens, and let's do it starting immediately. And I know we're focused on veterans issues, and I don't want to derail this too much, but it's very important to talk about the three obvious things that we should be doing to make housing more affordable. Number one, we should be doing more home building in the United States of America. Think about this. We are descendants of people who built rockets that flew to the moon, and all they had was pocket calculators and slide rules. And thanks to government policy, we don't build enough houses to house American citizens. What is this? 60 years ago, we built rockets that went to the moon. Now we don't build enough houses for American citizens. If we got rid of some of the ridiculous regulations out there, we'd create a lot of prosperity in the construction industry. We'd also build a lot more homes for American citizens. Number two, we've got to pursue common sense economic policies that lower mortgage interest rates so that people can afford to borrow and get into a home in the first place. And here's the final thing, and it goes back to Julie's point about illegal immigration. It doesn't matter how many homes we build. If we allow millions upon millions of people who don't have the legal right to be here to go into houses that ought by right go to American citizens, we are going to have a housing crisis. This very simple principle, and it's going to benefit veterans most of all, but it's going to benefit everybody, is American homes should go to American citizens, not to people who don't have the right to be here.
All right, our next question is going to come from Jesse.
I promise I'm standing up. My name's Jessie. I am a proud Puerto Rican, first and foremost, Army veteran, served as a drill sergeant. I've lived in Pennsylvania for over 20 years now, and I'm proud to call Pennsylvania home. So with all of that being said, I also have a almost 17-year-old son who's looking to join the military. He would love to go to an academy. So my husband and I are getting ready to send him off to do something like this. As someone who served, I deeply value the importance of peace and stability. In President Trump's first term, he showed a willingness to take bold steps by engaging with leaders across the world to promote peace. Given the current global landscape, can we expect the same level of commitment, proactivity, and diplomacy from him if reelected, especially given that I am now sending my son?
Yes, ma'am. So First, let me say a couple things. So you said your son might try to apply to an academy. Is that next year? Okay, so the rules are if you need to go to an academy, you need a letter of recommendation from either your senator or your congressman or from the vice president. And I'll say that while I don't know the Pennsylvania senators especially well, if all goes according to plan, I might know a guy who could help with that letter in 6 days. So please reach out to us. No promises, but reach out to us. But I'm so thrilled to hear about your background because I'm actually going to see him tomorrow at an event that we're doing in North Carolina. One of my best buddies in the Marine Corps was a Puerto Rican guy who grew up in the Bronx. You grew up in the Bronx too? Oh, that's awesome. Well, he grew up in just incredibly tough circumstances. I mean, he grew up in a very, very poor family. He was the best Marine that I ever served with. He's just a great, great guy, and I'm going to see him tomorrow. I'm very excited about it. But to answer your question, we are absolutely going to engage in robust diplomacy, robust statecraft. And one of the things I love about Donald J. Trump is, yes, sometimes there are problems in the world that require a military response. Sometimes there are problems in the world that require smart diplomacy, and you've got to use both if you want to solve the American people's problems overseas. You can't just send everybody off to war. That doesn't keep our trust with our veterans, and it sure as hell doesn't honor our commitment to the people who put on the uniform if we send them to be the policemen of the world instead of honoring their service and honoring their sacrifice by treating it as the precious resource that it is. So yes, we will absolutely be very careful about how we engage in foreign diplomacy. And this is, one of the things that, I imagine most of us are Republicans, or at least are going to vote for President Trump. I know we've got a lot of Democrats and independents in the audience too, including, of course, our great friend up here. And, one of the things that my fellow Republicans will say about Donald Trump's foreign policy is that it was strong, that weakness invites aggression. And that's right. I do think that Kamala Harris's weakness has invited aggression, but I actually think that's only half of the equation, because Donald Trump's foreign policy wasn't just strong, it was also smart. It recognized that sometimes you have to talk to people, sometimes even people you don't necessarily like or agree with, but you've got to engage in smart diplomacy, and that is sometimes how you keep a war from starting in the first place.
I was a Democrat serving in Congress when President Trump was elected.
Yep.
And one of the things that he did very early on in his term of office was really, really important to the people of Hawaii, my home state. As you know, we're the most remote island chain in the world. We are very well within North Korea's proximity of their intercontinental ballistic missiles. At that time, they were still developing their nuclear capability. They are much farther along today than they were back then. But we had a missile scare where we thought early one morning on a Saturday in 2017, every single cell phone went off with an alert that said ballistic missile incoming to Hawaii. You remember this?
I remember this. This was a big news story at the time.
It was massive for residents and tourists alike. People sitting on the beach in Waikiki watching the sunrise, and their phone goes off and it says ballistic missile incoming to Hawaii. Seek shelter immediately. This is not a test. And it's you can't really imagine what that is like until you experience it.
They were just trying to prepare you in case Kamala Harris became president. That's what's going to happen if that nightmare ever becomes real.
But we went through, people sitting on the beach, they're like, where do I go to find shelter? That where here, as if we got that alert tonight, where would we go to find shelter? If we got an alert that Putin was launching a nuclear weapon, where would we go? There is no shelter to be found. And it was a huge wake-up call to realize that fact and that reality. And so when President Trump chose to go and meet with Kim Jong-un, the first president ever to step into North Korea at the DMZ, as a Democrat in Congress, I was loud and proud to say, this is the kind of leadership that we need, because President Obama, in the previous 4 years, I had been urging them. I was on the Foreign Affairs Committee, the Armed Services Committee, urging them to do this. De-escalate tensions, try to denuclearize the Korean Peninsula. President Obama refused to do it because he said he didn't want to reward Kim Jong-un with a meeting. So, JD, I'm just wondering if you can talk about how, you know, there are critics of President Trump who say that his foreign policy is isolationist.
Yep.
Talk about and tell us why they're wrong.
Well, they're wrong in part because of exactly what you just said. You know, it's funny. The people who have been wrong about every foreign policy disaster for the last 30 years are the very same people who say that it's terrible to engage in diplomacy. And it's interesting that they were wrong about, remember how they said that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction, and remember how they said that it was going to be really easy to turn Iraq into a, you know, American-style democracy, and they said it was going to be really easy to turn Afghanistan into a Western liberal society, and of course, that became a 20-year quagmire. My attitude is, after 20 years of being wrong about everything, why don't these people at least acquire some humility and shut up and stop trying to tell us what to do with the foreign policy in the United States of America? And, you know, the idea that somehow showing up in North Korea and having a conversation is going to reward somebody. What we should be doing is actually having conversations with people and trying to de-escalate situations before they become massive military conflicts. And again, this goes back to the strong versus smart distinction and why both are important. You need both in an American leader. Remember how they all accused, and I've been accused of this, Tulsi's been accused of this, of course President Trump has been accused of being in bed, of colluding with Russia, and yet when George W. Bush was president, Russia invaded a sovereign country. And when Barack Obama was president, Russia invaded a sovereign country. And when Joe Biden was president, Russia invaded a sovereign country. Who was the one guy who prevented the Russians from invading a sovereign country? It was Donald J. Trump. And they never talk about that. But again, it's because he was strong. Certainly, some of the bad guys were afraid of what Donald J. Trump would do. But it was also because he was willing to communicate with people and open those diplomatic lines up in a way that prevented a hot spot from becoming a full military conflict. And Tulsi, you've probably heard the president tell this story, but it's one of my favorite stories of his time in office where, you know, I guess Kim Jong-un, the leader of North Korea, was trying to posture about his nuclear weapons and talk about how tough and big of a guy he was, and said, you know, I have a little red button on my desk that will launch nuclear weapons. And President Trump said, I have a bigger red button on my desk. And I actually, this is such a profound change between the President Trump, Tulsi Gabbard, common sense view of American foreign policy and the broken consensus of the last 30 years is that we have got to recognize that the best way to advance America's interests is, yes, to build a strong military, and yes, to be willing to use it when we have to, but also to engage in diplomacy. Why have a military if you're never going to engage in diplomacy? Why always use your fellow citizens, as Tulsi said, as cannon fodder? Why not instead actually communicate from time to time? You might save the lives of your citizens and prevent a bigger disaster down the road.
You know, that really, for me, was one of the major driving reasons why I chose to endorse President Trump. David, I'm glad you brought up the 13 who were killed at Abbey Gate. I was honored to announce my endorsement of President Trump on the 3rd anniversary of their sacrificing their lives for our country, because it is essential that every one of us as Americans always keep the memories of those who have paid that ultimate price on our hearts, and that we hold our leaders accountable. The most important responsibility the president has is to serve as our commander-in-chief. Our founders told us that the government only exists with the consent of the governed.
That's right.
We face a no-fail mission. every one of us, a no-fail mission to save our country and save the world, and President Trump is the only choice in this election that will lead us back on that path towards peace, freedom, and prosperity. Now, before I hand it over to JD, I just want to say that when I heard the rumor mill spurring, you hadn't been announced yet, but I heard the rumor mill spurring that President Trump was going to announce that you were his pick for vice president. My heart was happy and I felt at ease because in the time that you have served in the U.S. Senate, while it hasn't been as long as many others who've been there for decades, you have lived an experience that many others haven't. You have seen the cost of war, and you've used that experience in your time leading in the U.S. Senate to take a stand against the military-industrial complex and for peace, and you standing shoulder to shoulder with President Trump, the rest of us can sleep peacefully at night. Thank you.
Thank you. It's kind of you. So, thank you, Tulsi. That was very kind of you to say, and most importantly, it's very kind of you to go around the country and convince people to elect Donald J. Trump the next president of the United States. And we couldn't do this without you. Thank you. You know, I always try to encourage folks to remember why we're fighting, because it's not red team versus blue team. There are a lot of Democrats, a lot of independents who are going to support this ticket, and of course we're proud to have their support. It's not even just to beat Kamala Harris, as much as I'll probably enjoy beating Kamala Harris more than any person in this room. Trust me about that. The point here is we want to beat Kamala Harris to give the American people the leadership that the American people deserve. And that's ultimately what this election is about. You know, ma'am, you asked the question earlier. I mentioned my friend who I'm going to see tomorrow, I think, assuming all the logistics work out. And think about what the Marine Corps meant to this kid that I served with. He grew up in the Bronx. He actually, as I understand it, had some drug use and even drug dealing in his past. He shows up in North Carolina at a Marine Corps base as a young kid, and again, he's the best Marine that I ever served with. In fact, I want to tell you a funny story, because he knew gang stuff because he had grown up in such a tough neighborhood and such a tough circumstance. And we were near a big city in North Carolina. It was late at night. It was probably 2 a.m. And he pointed to some guys over in a car at a gas station. We were stopped to get gas, and he said, I think those guys are Bloods. In other words, like members of a gang. And I said, well, why do you think that they're Bloods? And he said, well, because, they're dressed a certain way. They've got a certain kind of red dress. And I think that, I'm just telling you, man, I think that they're Bloods. I grew up seeing this, and I think that's what's going on. And, I called him Squeeze. I said, all right, Squeeze, well, what would you go up and say to these guys if they were actually members of the Bloods gang? And he said, well, I'd go up to them and I'd say, what that red be like? And I said, oh, that's interesting. So what would happen, Squeeze, if I went up to those guys and said, what that red be like? And he said, I'll tell you exactly what they'd say, JD. They'd say, I'm sorry, officer, I don't know what you're talking about. And if you think about the Marine Corps, it took a guy who was raised by hillbilly grandparents from eastern Kentucky and southern Ohio and put us into the same unit with a guy who grew up around Bloods gang members from the Bronx in New York City, and it made us part of the same United Marine Corps and American team. And that is an incredible thing that our U.S. military does. But we've got to ask ourselves, is it going to keep doing that? Is the military going to serve that same important function? As Tulsi said, it takes civilians and turns them into warriors. It also takes people from every walk of life and makes them part of the same team. The former Marine Corps Commandant, General Charles Krulak, said the most important thing that the military does is it wins battles, but it also turns our young people into really proud servants of the United States of America. Is that still going to happen? Is it still going to have that same function for the United States of America if we put Kamala Harris into the Oval Office? I think the answer is no. So what we're up against and what we're fighting for is to preserve the most important and proudest traditions of the United States military, to ensure that our veterans get access to the benefits that they were promised. And the only way that is going to happen is if we fix the broken leadership in Washington, D.C., and give the American people a president that we can all be proud of. And so I want to ask you, over the next 6 days, I want every single person in this hangar to get out there and vote 10 times. The legal way. The legal way. The legal way you get out there and vote 10 times is you take yourself to the polls and you get 9 of your friends and family to join you.
Thank you for tuning in to the live stream. We've heard from J.D. Vance in Pennsylvania alongside Tulsi Gabbard, who I think will be a bigger star in the Republican Party. J.D. is a rising star right now, but Tulsi Gabbard will be a huge star and probably maybe a top of the ticket probably by 2032. Who knows? Because we have people talking about Vivek, or there's so many people in the Republican Party right now. Okay, make sure you double tap your screen. Let's get the likes up, and make sure you subscribe if you like what we do here. Okay, let's listen to AOC. Some people say, I think the former president calls her AOC +3. I don't know what that means anyway. And then she spoke about the MSG event in New York that the former president had. Let's hear what she has to say.
This morning, the Trump campaign is playing cleanup, trying to distance the campaign and the candidate from comments made from the stage at his big rally yesterday here in New York. Comedian Tony Hinchcliffe was among the warm-up acts to speak, and here's what he said.
I welcome migrants to the United States of America with open arms. And by open arms, I mean like this. These Latinos, they love making babies too. Just know that. They do. They do. I don't know if you guys know this, but there's literally a floating island of garbage in the middle of the ocean right now. Yeah. I think it's called Puerto Rico.
Joining us right now, Democratic Congresswoman from New York, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Thanks for being here. You called this out last night. You were hanging out with Tim Walz. You guys were streaming. You called it out last night. Fresh eyes on it this morning when you see that remark and you see now that comedian responding to you guys. I'll read a bit of it for you. I know you've seen it, but for everyone out there, these people have no sense of humor. Wild that a vice presidential candidate would take time out of his busy schedule to analyze a joke taken out of context to make it seem racist. I love Puerto Rico and vacation there. I made fun of everyone, watch the whole set. I'm a comedian, Tim. Might be time to change your tampon, is what he ends it with. What does it mean today? What does it do today?
You know, this honestly isn't really about a comedian. This is about the Trump campaign. Those comments and that individual saying those things on that stage, inciting an entire arena of individuals who have been previously incited to commit attacks like the ones we saw on January 6th by people like Donald Trump. None of that was an accident. These campaign events are put together. They are vetted. That language was vetted by the Trump campaign. That that person was approved by the Trump campaign because he is speaking on behalf of the Trump campaign. And I think it's really important.
Bro, this is, I'm sorry to say, this is Kamala 2.0. What are you saying, though?
That people understand that when we see everything that's happening, what is being transmitted and said about Latinos in the United States is exactly what the Trump campaign means. He believes that Latinos, as we've seen, are an unimportant, unvalued, and unnecessary part of the United States of America. And when Stephen Miller comes on and talks about America for Americans, he's not even talking about U.S. citizens as Americans, because Stephen Miller kind of flirts with this idea of taking away U.S. citizenship from people depending on his own personal opinions about what being an American means. And so the Trump campaign is very clearly transmitting who they believe is an American and who they don't, not based on citizenship, but based on ethnicity and based on their opinion of Donald Trump.
When we look back at the numbers and the gains he has made with Latino voters since 2016, from 2016, depending what you're looking at with the numbers now, you see a 9-point gain. You've seen Harris getting, I've seen 12 points fewer than Hillary Clinton got in 2016. Seen some recent gains in some new polling just out yesterday that she's making with Latino voters. How do you explain it? How do you explain that Trump is making ground with Latinos?
You know, I think ironically it's because he realized that he needed to keep his mouth shut with his bigotry for a very long period of time in order to try to make some kind of disingenuous case into to the Latino community. But the fact
you don't believe him when he speaks to it.
Pardon?
You don't. You said disingenuous. You do not think when he speaks to Latino voters, when he speaks to helping them, when he's in Nevada speaking to workers. You don't believe it.
No. I mean, you don't insinuate that Latinos are un-American or less American if you actually value them. He wants to be president of the United States. He'll say what he needs to say, but at the end of the day, when you look at what Kamala Harris does, she actually ironically unveiled her platform and plan for Puerto Rico yesterday, before that rally even started. And that plan involves actually addressing the displacement crisis that Puerto Ricans are facing right now, the displacement of doctors and teachers, the closures of schools and public facilities, the lack of investment in infrastructure, and as a Puerto Rican American, extremely concerned about people using tax loopholes to displace people in Puerto Rico. She's actually trying to see and solve and create opportunities for Puerto Rican Americans. And you see the contrast of Donald Trump maybe trying to distract from the fact that he has no economic plan for Latinos in general, but also not only that, blaming economic issues, for example, our housing crisis, on Latinos and on immigrants. Instead of actually coming up with a plan to help lower our cost of rent and mortgages, he's coming out here just trying to blame immigrants for the fact that it's actually his buddies and friends that are driving up the cost of housing in America.
Speaking of the broader campaign, I've seen Trump-aligned PACs. I've seen it on air and I've seen it digitally. Trump-aligned PACs have used you in ads to hit Kamala Harris, saying to label her San Francisco liberal is the term that they often use again and again. Do you think your support for her hurts her with moderate voters, which we have very clearly seen in the recent weeks that she's making a direct appeal to?
I don't think so. And I think that bears out in the data and the evidence, not just a matter of personal opinion. I work very closely alongside many of my colleagues across the House Democratic Caucus, and they are of all different kinds of political opinions. And frankly, I think moderate voters and everyday people see right through some of these scare tactics for what they are. They see how they are exaggerations. They see that these are kind of just baseless attacks. And that's made evident by the fact that I'm proud to be able to support, swing district Democrats, and they're not afraid of these attack ads. They're just not landing and they're not effective.
Flip side of this, she has gone on a whole tour with former Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney to try to win moderate Republicans. I mean, looking back, you and Liz Cheney in the House, you guys butt heads on issues over and over again. She calls Liz Cheney a true patriot when they were campaigning together. Is that hurting Kamala Harris with more progressive voters.
Well, listen, I think there's plenty of people that aren't happy about that. And I think that is part of the nature of putting together a coalition. I don't love it, but that doesn't mean that we aren't on the same team and we aren't on the same page when it comes to who is unequivocally the better candidate in order to win the presidential election.
On the issues, her evolution on positions, and she's explained the evolution on her positions from 4 years ago, fracking, border wall, border security, Medicare for all. They have moved from more progressive to more moderate. That's the direction you very clear them see in this election. Do you like that she is doing that? Do you like that shift?
I think that my stances on these issues are very clear. I believe that every single American has the right to health care, and we should be working to guarantee to improve and expand Medicare and lower the age of eligibility to 0. And that's my goal. I also believe that we need to have a real plan to document people who wish to come into the United States and contribute to our growing economy and really be part of what is charging the economy, which is frankly also what bears out in the data. That's not a matter of personal opinion. The American economy thrives because of our immigrant population. The way that we address the crisis is by actually providing a path to citizenship and documenting people. And when it comes to the climate crisis, our time is ticking down. But what I believe is that the Democratic Party is a coalition, and the stronger we make our case, and the stronger that we say we need to get big money out of politics, we need to tax these billionaires so that to the point that they stop manipulating our economy and squeezing the working class. I know what candidate the progressive flank has a fighting chance with, and it's not Donald Trump, it's Kamala Harris.
Congresswoman.
We've heard from AOC. Well, this is the first time I'm actually listening to her. I don't have anything to say concerning AOC, really. I just listening to her is like a typical Democratic politician. Okay. Should we end the live stream right here? Double tap your screen, subscribe to the channel. It is currently 5:49 a.m. and today's date is the 31st of October 2024. You want to end the live stream right here? We could end the live stream right now. And we could just call it a day and come back in like 4 or 5 hours. Hit the like, subscribe to the channel. Okay, let's see. RFK.
All right. Meanwhile, before the shirt talk, you're.
No, this isn't it. Okay, this is the Biden's garbage comment. Let's see.
Heard Lawrence talking about it. The White House now in damage control mode after President Biden inexplicably went on TV and called Trump supporters, it sure sounds like garbage, during a campaign call last night.
Lucas Tomlinson joins us live from the White House. Hey, Lucas.
Well, good morning, Ainsley. It was just last week that President Biden said he wanted to lock Donald Trump up. Now he said the following last night.
I don't know the Puerto Rican that I know, or Puerto Rico, where I'm in my home state of Delaware. They're good, decent, honorable people. The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters. His demonization is seen as unconscionable.
A White House spokesman attempted to clarify Biden's remarks, saying, quote, the president referred to the hateful rhetoric at the Madison Square Garden rally as, quote, garbage. Until Biden's comments, which critics say harkens back to Hillary Clinton's deplorables comment, the night was supposed to belong to his vice president, Kamala Harris. Her campaign says 75,000 people packed the ellipse here in the nation's capital to listen to Harris's closing argument. Now, before Biden's remarks, there was a lot of focus on that comedian who spoke at the Garden at Trump's rally, who made what some considered a crude remark about Puerto Rico. Now it's Biden's comments that last night that many Trump supporters are finding offensive. Of course, President Biden has not campaigned with his vice president at a rally since Labor Day, and there's no plans for him to do so. And now Senator Tom Cotton says he wants Biden to apologize to Harris. He wants Harris to condemn those comments, guys.
Lucas, I've got a question for you. So last night, Kamala Harris was on the ellipse, which is the park to the side of the White House. Yep. You could see the White House in the background. If Joe Biden looked out his window, he would see that party with tens of thousands of people that he was not invited to. Do people think that that's why he got on the horn and started talking to CNN and then made this gigantic mess less than a week before the election?
What appears that this event was already planned, Steve, but you're right to point out the numbers of people who came here to the ellipse, which is just a few hundred yards away. There's 75,000 people. And remember, in Houston over the weekend, 30,000 packed that arena to hear Beyonce and the vice president speak. Meanwhile, President Biden spoke at a rally in Pittsburgh. It was just union members. There was only about 100 people that attended that one, Steve.
Right. You just wonder why he was doing anything to take any spotlight away from the vice president when she needed the spotlight. And now, he really messed up. Lucas, thanks so much.
Thank you, Lucas. So President Trump was on stage with Marco Rubio. They were at an event in Allentown, Pennsylvania, at a rally. And Marco Rubio informed him.
Breaking news.
This is what Joe Biden just said about your supporters. Listen to this.
Well, I wasn't going to say anything, but I have breaking news for you, Mr. President. You may not have heard this. Just moments ago, Joe Biden stated that our supporters are garbage. He's talking about the Border Patrol. He's talking about nurses. He's talking about teachers. He's talking about everyday Americans who love their country and want to dream big again and support you, Mr. President. And I hope their campaign is about to apologize for what Joe Biden just said. We are not garbage. We are patriots who love America. And thank you for running, Mr. President.
That's terrible. Remember Hillary? She said deplorable. And then she said irredeemable, right? But she said deplorable. That didn't work out. Garbage, I think, is worse, right?
Right. It's not helpful to the Harris campaign.
One of the spins is they said, we just want to put an apostrophe. We want to fix it by putting an apostrophe after the S in the sentence to make it make sense. I don't know how that makes sense. I don't think you can.
S?
After
Garbage? It was because he said the only garbage I see floating out there are his supporters.
Supporters.
Oh,
supporters.
after supporters?
Yeah. So, yeah. So they put out an official statement right after.
Supporters.
Right.
So, yeah, this is their spin. They said the damage control statement then added an apostrophe to the word supporters to imply that Biden was only referring to one person, and that's the comedian Tony Hinchcliffe who made the joke about Puerto Rico.
Well, this is what Joe Biden.
That's a great spin.
Right. What Joe Biden did last night is
exactly left.
What Joe Biden did last night is exactly why the campaign of Kamala Harris does not want to campaign with him, because
I think you should give him another chance.
He is unpopular and he is undisciplined and he has made a gigantic mess for her.
Do they even talk, though? Isn't this the second time we've talked about how he's doing an interview while she has a big event?
Remember, he went and took over the press conference in the press room while she's having an event, and everyone had to switch away to the president.
But y'all, this is what they think of middle America. This is what they think of the South. Deplorable, smelly Walmart shoppers. Remember when Barack Obama was in office or running, and he said he was caught on a hot mic talking about Bibles and guns. That's what the middle America, God and guns, exactly. That's what they think of all of us. These are these coastal elites that live in their ivory towers. They're all politicians. They make millions of dollars. They call in the Hollywood A-listers, and that's what they think of middle America.
You might be able to get away with that by criticizing Jill Stein supporters, both of them. But you can't do that to 74 million people minimum. So that's why I'm sure when those doors close, they cannot figure how not only that Donald Trump may win, but that he even got the nomination. They must sit there and go, what are they not seeing about what we're seeing? They're flabbergasted.
Speaking of Jill Stein, it turns out yesterday the U.S. Supreme Court refused to take RFK Jr. off the ballots in Wisconsin and Michigan, which is not helpful for Donald Trump because he would want his name off. RFK, very disappointed, but the Supreme Court not going to budge. Meanwhile, President Biden stole the spotlight last night in the race. He dropped out over this comment about Trump supporters, it sounds like.
I don't know the Puerto Rican that I know, or Puerto Rico, where I'm in my home state of Delaware. They're good, decent, honorable people. The only garbage I see floating out there is his supporters. His demonization is seen as unconscionable.
Kind of a mess. Fox and Friends co-host Lawrence Jones is joined by U.S. Senate candidate Dave McCormick, the Republican, in the battleground of Pennsylvania, right there at that diner in Gap, PA. Guys, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Steve. We got Dave in here. We just got to get your reaction to the latest comments. The president was supposed to be watching Kamala Harris's speech yesterday. That's what he told us. Unfortunately, we learned that he was on a live stream in front of a laptop, and he called Trump supporters garbage. What's your response?
Yeah, listen, anytime you call half of Americans garbage because half the population is supporting President Trump, I think this is the kind of divisive rhetoric that we need to get out of politics. I think it's terribly polarizing. And so not only has President Biden, Kamala Harris, and Bob Casey had policies that have hurt more than half of Americans with skyrocketing prices, the fentanyl crisis, now they're actually showing disrespect for him. So I hope the president will apologize for that, and we need to get that kind of horrible rhetoric. I think it shows how they really feel about people that support President Trump.
You got a broad coalition of support. You got some independent voters. You got the former president, Donald Trump, supporting you. Nikki Haley, who challenged the former president, is going to be on the ground campaigning with you. Why does that matter, bringing everyone for this race?
Well, listen, I'm trying to build a coalition. President Trump's been here many times, and he's been a very big supporter. But I've got to build a coalition that is 50% plus one. And that includes Republicans that are on the fence, independents, conservative Democrats. And these problems are not Republican problems. The wide open border, skyrocketing prices, the war on fossil fuels, these affect all Pennsylvanians. And we need to have a senator that's going to fight for that. Senator Casey's been a career politician. He's been weak. He's voted for all these liberal policies that are really taking our country in the wrong direction. And I'm someone who's an outsider, and I got to build a coalition that supports
Your race is now a toss-up, but your opponent is trying to find some way to link himself to Donald Trump.
To President Trump. I mean, this is panic is setting in at Casey headquarters, because he's not only saying these outrageous lies in his attack ads, he's now running commercials with him lining up to President Trump, who says he can't remember what Bob Casey looks like. So, listen, we're going to win this election. It's critical that we get every single vote out there. The request for mail-in ballots is gone. We got to get people out to the polls, and we're going to make a difference and win this election because people are rising up and they want to get their country moving in the right direction again.
There's a lot of people that are excited about sending another door kicker to kick down the walls of Washington as well. Let's talk with some of the folks here, because I think that's important as well. I think we got Tyler right here. So, Tyler, what is your question for Dave?
Well, sir, thank you so much for coming to speak to voters today. We certainly appreciate it. I'd like to hear a little bit more about your solutions for the fentanyl crisis coming across our southern border and how we can start helping millions of Americans.
Yeah, this is a tragedy. We lost 4,000 Pennsylvanians last year from fentanyl. I've sat down with fentanyl families. It's the most heartbreaking thing. They've lost their children, and most of them didn't even know they were taking fentanyl. And it comes across the wide open borders that President Biden, Kamala Harris, and Bob Casey have allowed. They've supported sanctuary cities. Day one in the Senate, we need to finish the wall. We need to fund the Border Patrol. And I think we need to designate these cartels as terrorist organizations and go across the border with our drones, with our special operations, and destroy the manufacturing, destroy the distribution. This is a war on our communities. We have to treat it seriously. We got to reduce demand and other things, but we got to reduce the supply. And that's honestly, our leadership has failed us on this. We need to take it more seriously and fix it.
Sir, that's important for a lot of Americans. Let's go to my friend right here. What's your name again?
Angie.
And we got Angie. What's your question for Dave?
Hey, Dave. I just want to know what your take is on all this rhetoric. You know, we were called deplorables in the past. Last night, the president referred to us as garbage.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a middle-class American. I don't get fancy nails. I clean houses. What do you make of it?
I just said the same thing. It's beneath the President of the United States, or Commander-in-Chief Bob Casey's best friend, to refer to half of Americans as garbage, listen, we need to be above it. We need to recognize that we need leadership. We need common sense policies. That's what I'm running on. And I recognize that on day one in the Senate, I'm going to have to represent every single Pennsylvanian. I want to. Democrats, Republicans, Independents. This is about leadership. That was a terrible comment, a disgraceful comment. And it reminds me of Hillary Clinton talking about the deplorables. That can't be what they think of half of America. It's an awful thing, and I hope the president apologizes and takes it back.
Words. Thank you so much. We got one more quick question. All right, ma'am, what's your name?
Jenna.
What's your question for Dave?
So it's increasingly harder for young people of my generation to be able to raise families. So what can you do to make home ownership and childcare more affordable?
Yeah, well, I think it's excuse me. I think it's a direct result of the price inflation, the skyrocketing prices we have under Biden, Harris, and Bob Casey. Bob Casey voted 98% of the time for all these spending bills. We've got to make it easier to have children. So President Trump, in his 2017 tax plan, had a child tax credit. I would triple the size of that. So that needs to be much more significant. We need to have child care tax credit. And one of the things I proposed is a fertility treatment, IVF tax credit, because fertility treatment is so expensive. Most Americans can't afford it. And if they can't afford it, they can't experience the joy of children. When I was a CEO, I made sure every single employee had access to IVF. We need to do that for all Americans. Having the joy of, listen, I have 6 daughters. So the joy of parenting, I want to make sure every single Pennsylvanian can have that who wants it.
That was cool. Going into a restaurant and talking to them and knowing what they think. This is actually an effective way to do a campaign. That's nice of the next senator or whatever he's running for. Okay, so let's see what's going on in the polls. According to CNN,
that's not something he wants to do. On the
We're following breaking news on dueling Kamala Harris and Donald Trump events in Wisconsin tonight, with the election now less than a week away. CNN's new Battleground state polls show the vice president has the same advantage over Trump in Wisconsin that she had back in August. Her lead in Michigan also holding steady. And in Pennsylvania, our new poll shows Harris and Trump are tied, just as they were this summer. Let's get back to our political experts for some serious analysis. David Axelrod, the margins in these states are essentially the same as they were back in August. But now, look at this, just 6% of Wisconsin voters say they're movable. 7% of Michigan voters, 8% of Pennsylvania voters say they're movable. How does the Harris campaign expand its margins with this relatively small sliver of voters?
Well, look, I think part of what she was trying to do last night was make an argument that might attract those voters. And the idea is to link some of these character issues of Trump, this fixation on his enemies and on settling scores and on vengeance, and assign a cost to it in terms of the ability to work with others to get things done and to actually address the problems that are touching people's lives. That was part of what she was trying to communicate last night, what I think she'll continue to communicate. But Wolf, at this point, this is also a ground war. These races are very close. The margins in these polls in Michigan and Wisconsin are a little bit larger than some of the other polls that are out there and some of the other polls I've seen. I think these are all very, very close races, and they're going to be determined by organizational efforts and who comes out to vote in these states. And I think I expect you'll see President Obama in some of these states again, and all of these folks who are geared toward turnout as well. This is a turnout election now, and it's going to be a battle in the trenches.
Anna, take a look at the remarkable gender gap in these blue wall states as well. Harris leading with women, Trump with men in Wisconsin. The gap is very dramatic. What does that tell you?
It tells me that women are very worried about their reproductive health and their rights. It tells me that women are excited about voting for a woman, a qualified woman for president. Listen, look, I think that Nikki Haley had some very wise words today for Donald Trump, except he doesn't want to hear, saying the way you are campaigning, you've got the bros already. You've got the crypto bros already expand the tent, but that's not something he wants to do. On the opposite side, you see Kamala Harris, who's got all hands on deck trying to precisely do that.
Poll after poll after poll show just how exceedingly tight this presidential race is, according to polls, especially in critical battleground states. Polls, of course, are not 100%. Far from it. CNN senior data reporter Harry Ensign's at the Magic Wall. Harry, some polls in past races have been way off the mark. Why?
Why? Because as I say here on this slide, polls are a signal. They ain't Nostradamus, my dear friend. They ain't Nostradamus. They take a sample of the population. You don't necessarily know who's going to turn out and vote on Election Day. And so I want to put in some simple stats for you, get your audience to understand that polls are far from perfect. All right. So how much was the average state polling average missed by since 1972 in the key battleground states? Well, the average error is 3.4 points. My goodness gracious, all the polls right now are well within the poll averages in the key battleground states. How about your quote-unquote margin of error, that you're 95% confidence interval? It's even wider than that. Get this, 5% of polls in the key battleground states, those polling averages, get this, missed by more than 9.4 percentage points. So even if you have, say, a 6-point lead in a key state, that ain't necessarily safe. But this 3.4 points, I think, is very key, because I want to apply this 3.4 points to the electoral map right now. So let's say we have an average polling miss, and the polls are understating Kamala Harris, and she benefits from an average polling miss. Well, what happens? Well, she carries all these Great Lake battleground states. She carries the key states down in the southeast. She carries Nevada and Arizona out here in the southwest. And she gets to get this. It's a blowout. It's a relative blowout, Jake. It's 319 electoral votes for Kamala Harris compared to 219 electoral votes for Donald Trump. Of course, we remember the last two times, right? We remember 2016. We remember 2020 when the polls understated Donald Trump. What happens if the polls do that again and we have an average state polling miss that benefits Donald Trump? Well, get this. Donald Trump gets up to 312 electoral votes. He's the one that gets over 300 electoral votes. Why? Because he carries all the Great Lake battleground states, he carries the Southeast battleground states, and he carries Nevada and Arizona out here in the Southwest. The bottom line is poll after poll after poll have shown this race to be way too close to call. But polls are imperfect. If we have an average polling miss, don't be surprised if either Kamala Harris wins easily, or in the case of this battleground map, Donald Trump wins rather easily, Jake.
That's why I stopped using polls last week. Harry Ensign, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Just 6 campaigning days left. The candidates are now matching each other state for state across the electoral map. The former president is talking right now in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Those are live pictures. The vice president, meantime, also in Wisconsin for an appearance shortly in Madison. Both she and her opponent were in North Carolina earlier today. We'll go live in a moment to Madison, where CNN Jeff Zeleny been talking to his campaign sources about, among other things, new CNN polling from Wisconsin. Take a look. It shows the vice president with a 6-point lead there, a 5-point lead in Michigan. Both are outside the margin of error. In Pennsylvania, though, it is all even at 48. CNN's John King starts us off with more. So, John, I mean, looking at these numbers, what stands out to you?
Largely positive for the vice president. They show competitive races in all 3 of these blue wall states. Anderson, I can just show you. I'll bring up my friend. The mini magic wall is with me here. Remember, these are the blue wall states: Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Our new polling shows the vice president, as you noted, leads in Michigan and in Wisconsin. A tie in Pennsylvania. Why do these states matter? Well, Joe Biden flipped him back to blue in 2020. He's president. In 2016, if you go back an election, Hillary Clinton lost all 3 of those states. That was Donald Trump's big surprise, and he was president. So the blue wall states have mattered, have been decisive in the last 2 presidential elections. One other way to look at it is this way. If you look at the vice president's path to 270 electoral votes, if she can hold those leads, this is where we are right now, 226 to 219. If she can hold those leads in Wisconsin and in Michigan, well, look how close she is, right? Her path, bam. If she can just get Pennsylvania, that gets her there right there. So no path is easy, but that is her easiest path to 270. Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. These polls show us she is less than a week to go in play to possibly do that.
Do we know when? I mean, when were these polls taken? Was this before the Trump rally with the slurs against various groups?
Right, that's an important thing to note. The polls are they're taken several days ago, and then you take a few days to process them. So events can change things. That's one of the things you're watching. It's also why we will say 100 times, don't ever invest in just one poll. If you average, as our great polling team does, the recent Battleground state polls, it would show Michigan and Wisconsin a little bit closer than our polling. So you have the question, did we catch a break her way, or is it just our polls got a little bigger lead and another one has it different, and you average them out? But if you look in the weeds of these polls, there are some concerns for the vice president among black voters in Pennsylvania and in Michigan. Some good numbers for the vice president when you look at the suburbs. So again, don't invest in over one poll. With a few days left, this does show her easiest path. Go ahead.
Yeah, let's just drill down on those numbers, because among likely black voters in Michigan, Harris gets 83%, in Pennsylvania 76%. That's running behind Biden in 2020.
It is running, and it's running significantly behind Biden in 2020. Now, the Harris campaign says it doesn't believe that's what's going to happen on Election Day. And in our travels, we see a lot of emphasis on early voting in the black community, including here in Milwaukee today. But I'm showing you Philadelphia right now, not just for the percentage. If you want to win Pennsylvania as a Democrat, you need to do that, but not just the 80%. Look at the math. You need the high turnout, right? I blocked it out a little bit by scribbling too hard. But you see, look at the big number there and there. Joe Biden wins the state by 80,000 votes. Look at that giant margin in Philadelphia. It is that margin in Philadelphia, which is largely the black community, that helps you offset all of that Trump red in the rural area. So that is a bit of a warning sign in Pennsylvania. And then if you come over again to Michigan, where we will be tomorrow, the Detroit area, Wayne County, is obviously where the black turnout is huge. And again, look, not just at the percentage Biden got, but the math. The size of the margin helps you win the state. Again, the Harris campaign thinks it won't be as bad as these numbers would say, but she's running stronger in the suburbs. She's running well among white non-college workers. That's something they need to keep an eye on without a doubt. And it's a place where the Trump campaign vows and promises it will survive. It will surprise us come Election Day.
Yeah, to that point, Harris is running ahead of both Biden and Clinton, with white non-college educated voters
Average
in
Joe,
Wisconsin
for sure.
voting 43%.
Average
How
Joe.
crucial is that?
You are
in
absolutely
Wisconsin?
right, my brother.
Well, you just mentioned where the former vice president is today, the former president, excuse me. So Brown County is where Green Bay, Wisconsin is, right? You see that on the map right here. You see his win over Joe Biden in 2020, right? You see 65,000 votes, 75,000 votes, so roughly 10,000 vote margin there, right? Donald Trump won the county. Why am I focusing on that margin? Joe Biden loses again. This state was decided by 20,000 votes, both times, 2016 and 2020. Joe Biden lost that county by 10,000 votes, right? Go back in time again. Let me move this up a little bit. Sorry, I have to move to get to 2016. Now I'll come back. Let me come back over for you here. Now you come back to Wisconsin and you go to Brown County again in 2016. What's the difference? Look at the bigger margin. Hillary Clinton loses it by almost 14,000 votes. So the math matters. Even in places you are losing, the margins matter. So if Vice President Harris is running close to Biden's numbers with white, non-college educated voters, that makes a difference in Brown County, Wisconsin. It makes a difference in Luzerne County, Pennsylvania. The margins within the margins, if you will, the small battlegrounds within the battleground states. If she can hold that number plus her suburban number, she has to work on the black voter number. But again, if you look in the weeds of these polls, if our poll
You are
is
absolutely
correct
right,
heading into the final
Average
days of the
Joe.
campaign, it
Facts.
does show, again, it's not easy,
And that's just-
but the vice president's easiest path to victory, Anderson, is within striking distance.
Let me just ask you, I mean, do you buy polls? I mean, do you buy these numbers? I mean, there's a lot of great people working on this and, work very hard on it. And I think there's just a lot of distrust of polls. Do you buy them?
I don't invest in them. I use them for trajectory, right? So these polls show which way is the arrow bending, and I study much more. Where's the black vote? Where's the suburban vote? Where's the college-educated vote? What do the subgroups tell me? And then you come out and you travel in the states and you talk to people and you show up at the early voting sites and you see what happens. I will say this is one of the giant questions. In both 2016 and 2020, I just said these polls are relatively good news for the Vice President of the United States. Well, I want to add this caveat. In both 2016 and 2020, we know that in the battleground states, Donald Trump overperformed his polling numbers in almost every poll. And so the polls in the end showed Donald Trump at a point. And in the battleground states, he ran better than that. Now, the pollsters will tell you they've worked really hard to adjust to try to get the Trump vote right. Do they have it right this time, or will he overperform again? In the 2018 midterms, the Democrats overperformed what the polls said. 2022 midterms, excuse me. And we know what happened then. The Democrats had a much better year than people anticipated. So I don't buy them in the sense that I think they're exactly right. You look at them for trajectory, which ways are going. You study beneath them, right? You study beneath them. So they're a tool they're not everything, Anderson.
All right, John, we're going to talk to you later on for drill down in what you've seen in Wisconsin today. From Milwaukee now to Madison, in the Harris events, Jeff Zeleny is there for us. Jeff, what can we expect to hear from Vice President Harris tonight?
Anderson, we expect Vice.
Thank you for tuning in to the live stream. Double tap your screen, subscribe to the channel. You guys are the best. What do you think about the polls? Do you believe the polls? Are you following the polls? Who do you think is leading in the polls? Who do you think is leading in the polls right now? All right, let's see.
Jennings, also Gretchen Carlson, journalist and co-founder of Lift Our Voices. Ashley, I mean, I don't know what you think about these polls. Interesting that, I mean, she seems to be this slightly uptick in these latest polls, whether that's real or not. How do you see the race right now?
I'm not a big believer in polls, even though when they say things that I like, meaning that the person that I think should win, Kamala Harris, is up. I haven't been to Michigan or Wisconsin in this cycle, but I was in Pennsylvania and I was in North Carolina. And I think the narrative a little bit, if you're on the internet and Twitter, is that it's all Trump country out there. Like in the Black community, it's very Donald Trump heavy. And we're just not seeing that. The door knockers on that are going on canvases.
You were canvassing in Philadelphia.
Yes. And what we're seeing is there are actually more undecided voters than I like to believe that they really are. And the decision is, am I actually going to go vote? But there are some voters, predominantly more white voters, who are saying, do I want to vote for Kamala Harris? They are not thinking about voting for Donald Trump, but they're thinking about maybe sitting it out. And I think that that is what you might be picking up in these polls, even though I don't think it is telling. I think she has a fantastic ground game right now that is trying to convert. And I just got a report out of Arizona that they saw no operation for Donald Trump on the doors and converting voters. So this really is a turnout game. And the final thing I'll just say is, because of the condensed timeline of her candidacy, I think these last 5-6 days actually do matter. I think the rally in Madison Square Garden does have an impact on people who were going to vote in person. I think, her performance on the eclipse, it does get people excited. There are so many new ads just dropping. Like at this point, most ads are just packaged and repackaged, but new content is dropping. And I think that is actually touching some of those undecided voters.
Tonight, are the polls wrong? Harris and Trump are in a dead heat, according to several national polls released over the last week. The battleground states are as close as they get, although many recent polls have shown Harris rising. Both candidates, though, are signaling they see the race differently than the polls.
We're leading in all the polls, so that's a good thing. We better keep it going.
To be very frank with you, my internal polling is my instinct. If you see the people who are showing up last night, every event that we do, and the feeling is one of energy and excitement.
Terrence Woodbury is out front, Democratic pollster, who's a senior advisor to the Harris campaign, and Kristen Soltis-Anderson is a Republican pollster and, of course, very familiar to viewers, political commentator. So great to have both of you. This is what everybody wants to know. Everyone talks about the polls, and then they don't know if they're just a pile of nothing, and it's just the topic out there. So, Terrence, a lot of swing state polls, right, 2 of them coming out of CNN tonight, do show Harris not just improving, but up. So if they are wrong, right, if they're wrong, what are they missing?
Look, I've been paying attention to the trend line in these polls, and I've been very confident in the direction. I agree that none of the polls that can predict right now who's going to win, because they're all within the margin of error. But if I could choose to be any campaign right now, it's the Harris campaign, because the trend lines are all moving in her direction. She is consolidating the multiracial, multi-generational coalition that's necessary to win. She's improving her margins amongst women by carrying this message to protect a woman's right to choose. She's improving her margins amongst young people. And I think most important is that she's proving to be able to put together this coalition that's going to propel her to victory.
So Terrence, though, if they're wrong, what is it that they will have overcounted, right? What is it that the poll, yeah.
if anything, they are undercounting young people, right? That there's an emerging coalition here of young voters, specifically young voters that were mobilized by the Dobbs decision. This is the emerging electorate that we have seen propelling Democrats to victory, even in red states post 2022. And if anything is wrong in the polls here, it has been undercounting those young voters.
So interesting. You see, if anything's wrong, it's undercounting the young voters. Okay, Kristen, on the national polls, it's still more of a dead heat than many of these state polls show. Some state polls do, but others obviously have shown Harris gaining. When you look beneath the surface on these national polls that continue to be within the margin of error, several things stand out to you. What is most significant in those?
Well, right now, even though the national polls are showing a very close race, if you look under the surface, many polls have different ways to get to that close result. So some polls are showing what I would call a realignment. Take, for instance, something like gender. We typically have had a gender gap in the last few elections where Democrats do better among women, Republicans do better among men. But in the most recent New York Times Siena poll, they showed a gender gap that was massive, and in part because Donald Trump has built his standing with men, even as Kamala Harris continues to win women by double-digit margins. So there could be a realignment along those lines. You also have realignment along educational lines. For a long time, education wasn't considered a big predictor of how people would vote. But Donald Trump has done very well with voters who don't have a college degree. At the same time that New York Times poll shows Harris doing great among white voters with college degrees. That would be something that would make the election look very different than past ones we've seen.
All right. And so 2 important points there. Now, Terrence, as I said, you have been doing polling for the Harris campaign. And specifically, you've been looking at Black voters, which has been an important area of focus for the campaign, specifically Black male voters. And you have noticed a shift. You have noticed a trend in very recent days. What is it?
Yeah, that's right. I believe that we've been getting the narrative about Black men wrong for a long time here. There's been, for the past several weeks, this constant narrative about Black men somehow abandoning Democrats or Kamala Harris. And in fact, it just isn't true that Black men are going to support the vice president at a higher rate than any other group of men, as they have in every presidential election since I've been born. But most important, what we've seen is that the efforts, the strategy of the Harris campaign, the opportunity agenda that she delivered to Black men, meeting them where they are on platforms like Club Shay Shay, like the Shade Room, like Charlemagne the God, that this is in fact closed the gap amongst Black men, and she's doing better than Joe Biden was, and I expect her to have a higher share of Black men's votes than even Joe Biden had.
All right, so Terrence, you're saying that she could overperform the polls with Black male voters, and that if the polls are wrong in anything, you said it's because they're potentially undercounting young voters. Kristen, what you hear though in casual conversation with people is that, well, in past elections where there has been polling that has missed it, they've missed it on the Trump side, and they've missed it because they have undercounted Trump voters. Do you think that is a problem this year at all?
I think it is a possibility. I don't think it is definite, but it's the case that every time Donald Trump has been on the ballot, polls have underestimated his vote share, in part because he's really good at turning out unlikely voters, and polls are really good at capturing likely voters. At the same time, pollsters really want to get it right. There's nothing you want more than to be the pollster that nailed the election and says, haha, I saw it coming. And so pollsters have done everything they can to try to solve for this problem. But in the 2022 midterms, of course, to the extent there was polling error, it ran in the other direction. Now, Donald Trump wasn't on the ballot, and that's the thing that makes me a little bit nervous about the polls this time around. They could be missing those unlikely Trump voters again.
Now, Terrence, you're less worried about an undercount of Trump voters. You think that it would be an issue on the other side?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we have been overrepresenting Trump support amongst men of color. That what I've seen, especially amongst Black men, is that
I really think the winner would be called early, like probably Tuesday evening or Wednesday. And I think it's going to be by a landslide. I don't think it's going to be close. This is just my own opinion. I may be wrong, but I think it's going to be by a landslide. You're just going to hear Pennsylvania, the OG. Michigan, the OG. North Carolina, the OG. Georgia, the OG. I'm telling you, this is what I predict is going to happen. But What do I know? Double tap your screen, subscribe to the channel. Let's get it.
The black men that are the most likely to support Donald Trump are also the least likely to vote. So I don't think polls are properly representing what we're going to see on election night. I also think that we could be undercounting this emerging electorate. Look, millennials and Gen Z are now the biggest voting bloc in America. But they've also been the least likely voters. That Dobbs decision and the threat of abortion has changed that. And we've seen that in Michigan in the midterms. We saw that in Ohio and across the Rust Belt. And I expect that we will see that surge amongst young voters again.
All right. Well, we will see. These are the unknowns. And thank you both.
Okay, we have come to the end of it is 6:26 a.m. We have been streaming for almost 4 hours. Today's date is the 31st of October 2024. We have come to the end of the live stream. God bless you. Double tap your screen. Consider subscribing to the channel. We go live every single day. Double tap your screen, man. Subscribe to the channel, man. You guys are the best. Instead of looking for perfection, seek for consistency. Never give up on yourself. Never give up on your dreams. Never give up on God. Believe in yourself. Believe in your dreams. Believe in God. Okay? All right? Take care of your family. If you have kids, make sure you do not abandon your kids. All right? Take care of your kids. All right. All right. All right. All right. See you guys in about, say, 5-6 hours. Genesis is signing out, and if you have not voted, make sure you vote. That's the whole point of all this stuff we're doing. Make sure you vote. Okay? Genesis is signing out. I love you guys.